Okay, let's start the show.
It's March 12th, 2015. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith. We got a full house today, guys. A ton of stuff to go through. GDC, PAX East, Apple event. Norman Chan is here. How you doing, Norm?
Well rested.
Well rested. You went on vacation.
I did go on vacation.
But we're going to talk about that in a second. First, want to welcome back to the show Jeremy Williams.
Hi, thanks.
Welcome back, sir. And Gary Whitta is joining us because Apple on Monday.
We've got the awesome foursome. The Fab Four, the Fantastic Four. So many.
I think that one's trademarked, actually.
I think Fab Four might be as well.
Fab Four probably too. So
yeah.
So we could
awesome foursome.
I like
the
that.
We should
faded
get in
four.
on that one.
Dibs on not Ringo.
Not Ringo.
Too late.
You're English. You should be Ringo.
Well, as an English person, I should get to decide who's who because clearly I'm the authority.
Please do.
All right. Well, I'm going to. You think I might go a different way? But I'm actually going to go with George, who is my favorite.
George is the best Beatle.
He's my favorite Beatle.
Yeah.
I think he's the best Beatle. Everyone talks about John and Paul, obviously, because they were the kind of the two most famous ones and wrote most of the songs together. But George, I think, wrote. I mean, basically, he wrote my favorite.
Here
Beatles.
Comes the Sun.
Yeah.
While my guitar gently
Yeah,
weeps.
Something. All of my
Hey
favorite.
Jude.
All of my favorite Beatles songs were written by George Harrison, and he was kind of like the cool one. Like he was the one that he wasn't necessarily about getting all the limelight, and just was I think the greatest musical talent.
Didn't he also
of the
bring?
four.
Didn't he also bring the sitar to the Beatles?
Yeah, he was the one who so when the Beatles went into their go to India and do a lot of LSD and find themselves phase.
Yeah.
George, I think, was really interesting because they went out there and they got themselves like an Indian guru who kind of taught them to expand their minds. And I can't remember the song now, but there's a George Harrison song which heavily uses sitar
Norwegian wood.
music. No, it's not Norwegian wood.
Well, that heavily uses sitar.
But there is one in particular that is like the first 30 seconds are just nothing but like Indian sitar music. Anyway, George. Okay, so I'll be George.
Okay.
I'm gonna say.
Who's Jeremy?
Oh, I gotta be Ringo. I claim Ringo.
Well, so
I'm
now-
happy to
well,
take him because
I'm actually glad of that because Will and Norm as like the two
They gotta
main
be, yeah,
faces
right.
kind of have
Right.
to be John and Paul.
And
so
we clearly hate each other. So, that
I'm
works.
Paul, right?
Well,
I get
we'll
to
get to that in a moment, but it's actually a
young,
great relief that you're
the-
not, because like
the
usually
adorable
getting
one.
stuck with Ringo is like, you
No,
would
no.
want that, but like you're okay with that?
that would be my first choice.
Why?
Totally underrated drummer.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, but come on, clearly the least talented of the four, right?
no,
Oh,
I
dude.
think you take the drums out of those songs and you realize what you're missing. You don't. Yeah,
I
trust
think he
me.
was a talented drummer, but
Play the rock band.
Very
Beatles rock
unique.
band drums. He's a good drummer.
he was
Crush
a good
of
drummer.
Marge Simpson.
Wasn't the original drummer though?
no,
No,
Pete
it's true.
Pete
Best.
Pete Best. Yeah.
Yeah.
got kicked
and
out.
Paul played drums on a song or two, but
And you know the
it was
story
Ringo.
about the fifth Beatle, Stuart Sutcliffe?
Yeah. There's a movie about it.
Yeah.
Is he the
He's
manager?
the producer.
No, he was.
The Beatles were in the very, very early days. I think back when they were the Quarrymen.
Oh, they had a fifth member.
There were five of them.
Wow.
I think even when
And
they were
here's
in-
this. So Stuart Sutcliffe, someone may want to check my facts on this, but I'm pretty sure this is right. Stuart Sutcliffe got talked out of being in the Beatles by his girlfriend, who convinced him that they weren't going to be anything. So can you imagine that, like a couple of years later, when the Beatles are like the biggest band in the world, you're sitting there with your girlfriend, like, great advice there, lovely, thank you very much.
Wow.
He was an artist though. He was the original bassist. They made a movie. The movie I can't remember
I think
what the
it
movie
was
was
called
called. Backbeat. That's it. It's a fabulous movie. You should watch it.
Yeah.
But
Can
he
you
was
imagine dropping out of the Beatles?
He was in the
like,
band
right
through
before they
Hamburg.
became the biggest
I'm
thing.
sure
in the world.
that happens. That
Happens
has
all the time.
happened all the time, right? And with every famous actor.
Yeah. So for whatever reason,
Okay.
I think either they weren't happy with Pete Best's drumming, or there was some personality conflict, and Ringo got brought in later. So he wasn't really even like an original Beatle.
Who is though really?
Well, John and Paul and George.
And George. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So so now I'm tired of this part of the conversation.
But you haven't sort of you
I
two,
want to know the important part.
you two can sort out later in the day which one of you is.
I didn't
I don't
wanna-
know about enough history of the Beatles.
I mean, they're kind of basically equal, aren't they?
I mean,
Paul McCartney had wings.
What's that?
is that a positive really?
I don't know.
This sounds like a job for Nerd Court.
Yes, good point. So here's the thing, musical
no.
nerd court. Here's the thing. one way to figure this out is to look at the quality of the music that they made after they split up. John Lennon obviously made incredibly good solo music.
Imagine
Paul
is-
McCartney,
yeah.
Wings did some good stuff.
He's also responsible for the Spies Like Us theme, though,
Yes,
which is a real
and-
low point in
and
the
the thing-
80s. Oh, yeah.
No
and
way.
the theme tune from Destiny, which
Wait,
is not
the
brilliant.
video game?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, he did the title song.
Oh, that's weird.
But Wings did have some good stuff in it.
yeah, the Band on the Run is a great
Almost
song.
all of Ringo's music post the Beatles is awful.
No, I don't care about that.
Octopus's Garden, though, is one of my favorite Beatles songs. I know that's
I
controversial.
like that he did some of the more whimsical stuff. And not many people know this, but he was the original voice of Thomas the Tank Engine in the UK. That's
right.
That makes a lot of
Over
sense.
here,
yes.
it was George Carlin and other people had taken it, but he was the
Really?
original. Yeah.
That's an interesting song too.
What?
Octopus's Garden?
No, the Thomas the Tank Engine theme song. It just takes some interesting changes. You should listen to it sometime. Interesting song. That's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, enough idle chit chat. Norm, you were in Vegas this weekend. How was that? Anything exciting?
Fantastic.
Anybody you need to thank? Shout outs.
Thanks to our buddy Zeke for getting me to see Penn and Teller.
Ooh, were you in the special couches again?
Yes.
Those are good seats.
I'm very envious of you going to Vegas. A, because, I like Vegas and I've been in a really, really long time. But I'm especially envious because you went to Planet Dailies, which is my
I
favorite
went twice.
breakfast place on the planet.
Where'd you
It
stay,
is the
Norm?
best. I stayed at Bally's, which is affordable.
Did you have the French toast?
Yes.
Did you get the fried chicken Benedict?
Yes, twice.
Oh, those are the two best things on the
I
menu.
got them twice.
I love that place.
It is a genuinely fantastic place.
I
There's
bought-
one- did you know there's one in LA? There's
Is
only
there really?
two Planet Dailies. One in Las Vegas, in Planet Hollywood, and one in Santa Monica.
If you
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I'll go to that one.
If you'd like to know more about Planet Dailies, we talked extensively about it in what I believe was our 2012, probably 2012 CES coverage. Like our nightly talk shows basically always started with the Planet Dailies segment. It's just a great diner.
When you think about great breakfast places, you wouldn't think of the in-house restaurant at the Planet Hollywood Casino in Vegas to be among
would.
them. But in
Vegas
fact
is good for breakfast food.
Well,
It
Vegas,
is.
of course. Well, Vegas has legitimately become one of the great dining destinations in the world.
It's also kind of expensive now.
Yeah, you got to have the Skrilla.
I noticed your show notes is 4 pages long.
There's a lot to talk
Perhaps
about.
we should
We
start.
should probably move on.
Let's Joey and I were at PAX East this weekend too. Boston. Oh fuck.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, that was excellent.
So we had a little spillage.
That was about 8 ounces of water. Maybe
Wow.
an ice cube or two.
I'm gonna
At
go
least
get
you didn't
some
spill
now.
it
Maybe grab
over
a paper
any,
towel.
over any critical equipment.
Expensive
we don't
looking mixer
think
board.
so. I mean, it's on the H6. That's bad. I missed most of the mixer. Okay. Anyway, we were in Boston for PAX East. When we arrived, when you're walking down the sidewalk in Boston right now, they've had so much. Thanks, Norm.
Cold, right?
It was really cold. Joey got off the plane. I'd say that look at the floor and make sure there's nothing over on your side that looks like it's going to catch on fire, Norm. It was really, really cold, and the snow was piled up to about my hips.
Wow.
Like between the sidewalk and the road. Like all the parking spaces on the sides of the road were filled with snow because that's just where it had to go. When we walked, so we stayed at a hotel right near Boston Commons, which, if you don't know about Boston, which I didn't at the time, is near all the, it's the historic part of Boston. So, this church steeple where Paul Revere hung the lanterns, one if by land, two if by sea. We were 600 feet from the church steeple. That was pretty cool. We were able to see that. The place across from my hotel was where Samuel Adams and John Hancock and a bunch of the signers of the Declaration of Independence and the founders of the Constitution were buried. There was a big obelisk with Benjamin Franklin's name on it. I don't know if he was buried there. The plaque didn't say he was buried there.
No, Benjamin Franklin's grave is in Philadelphia.
Okay, so that makes sense. It's just a monument to Benjamin Franklin in the middle of a cemetery where the other founders are buried.
Okay.
I believe the motto of 99% Invisible, which is one of our favorite podcasts here at Tested, is read the plaque. Always read the plaque. Like walking down the street in Boston and reading the plaques, it takes a significant amount of time. You have to add an extra 10 or
there's a
15
lot of
minutes on a
history.
walk. It's a very old city by North American standards. It was really cool. We had a great time. PAX East was wonderful. We did a bunch of dads on Friday morning, like first thing, live for the first time. And that was me and Vinny and Rich Gallup and Chris Kohler from Wired. Rich Gallup is He's a former GameSpot guy. If you're a Giant Bomb fan, you'll know who he is. He made Fart Cat and is working on a Star Trek game right now. Eric Pope from Harmonix was one of our dads. And Chris's wife, Regina Wu, who's I think a database programmer, came on to talk about being a mom too. It was a good panel. I think people had a good time, and then kind of walked around and played board games and stuff the rest of the time. So Joey and I made a PAX East video, which will be on the site sometime soon, maybe end of this week or early next. And on Monday after PAX East, we went to America's Test Kitchen.
Oh.
Do you know the foremost testers of food and food equipment in the United States? Christopher Kimball. We got to sit down and talk to him. He gave us a tour of the kitchen of their entire facility, and we talked about like what it is they do and how they work, and like it was awesome. I totally geeked out. We did a bunch of food tasting demos, and we did some food tests live, and they talked about like how they do stuff. It was really good. I can't wait to have those videos up on the site. It'll be a few weeks probably for them, but it's a super good trip to Boston. So. If you want to hear a bunch of dads, you can find it on iTunes or it's on the site as well.
Was this your first time that your daughter has seen snow?
It was.
Was she into that?
She was super duper into that.
Yeah.
But it was kind of shitty snow. Like, you know how when you get, like, it's been frozen and melted and frozen and melted, and it's, like, I could walk on the surface of a 4-foot pile of snow and I weigh 220 pounds. So she was just like, this is just cold dirt. I don't understand. Why is it white? This is weird. Yeah. And she made a couple of snowballs and wanted to make snowmen, but it just didn't work. So. But we'll take her to Tahoe or something sometime.
Good for
before
you.
Too long. Anyway, on to the real business at hand.
There are two. This is the choose your own adventure that we must choose.
Well,
there are two paths we must take.
We talked about. Here's my thought.
Okay, well, the other thing, because you mentioned Eric Pope, Rock Band 4 was announced.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So that's coming out end of this year. Harmonix is developing it.
I bought a Rock Band 4 guitar.
I feel like what they said they were going to, for at least PlayStation, they're finding a way to use the old peripherals.
And the old content.
Import your old games as well.
That's the important
You mean the DLC?
I'm very supportive of Harmonix, and I basically am glad that they're making a new Rock Band game because they are kind of fun. But there was a period a long time ago when I was just over it, and I just literally threw all those instruments. I had so many plastic instruments that I just threw away.
Yeah.
Or put it like if you ever watch Storage Wars, as I do, because I'm a connoisseur of fine entertainment. Every single locker they open on Storage Wars, somewhere in there is a Rock Band guitar or a set of drums packed away in the back, because so many people bought them and then realized that they don't. It gets to a point where you don't play the game so much anymore, and they're just sitting around taking up space. That people just like threw them in the garage or get them to Goodwill. But now might be a good time. This would have been like a stock tip, right? It would be nice if John Drake or Eric
John
Pope,
Drake doesn't work there
Yeah,
anymore.
but he's still getting the info.
Okay.
Or Eric or Annette or someone could have like dropped me a dime and said like, now would be a good time to go to the Goodwill store and like buy a shitload of cheap Rock Band instruments because the market's about to explode, right? Because I bet you people are suddenly looking for like cheap.
Yeah.
Like me, they threw away the Rock Band instruments and now thinking, but it might be nice to have a couple again.
So the DLC will come across on both platforms. So if you bought a bunch of songs on the Xbox, you'll be able to play them on the Xbox One. If you bought a bunch of songs on the PlayStation,
I believe they have over 1,000 songs.
Oh, it's
in
like
the DLC
3,000.
catalog. It's
total.
nuts.
Yeah.
It was one of those things when we were going to do an E3, and back when MTV was publishing it, it was a big deal, huge booth, especially when they launched the Beatles Rock Band, and they would have a wall of this list of all the songs they had available on DLC. It's a massive, massive list. Of course, we'll have more information on that as we get closer to this year's E3.
I guarantee you right now, there's no way I'm having drums in the house again. That is just ridiculous.
Really?
I might just sing.
You can just come to my house. We're gonna have Rock Band nights again.
Okay, so you have the drums. I'll come over and I'll sing because that's what I'm best at.
Absolutely. We never really played Rock Band. Maybe once or twice.
No.
We had kind of the Rock Band nights had tailed off by the time we got.
I enjoyed Beatles Rock Band immensely. That was kind of the height of the experience for me.
There are kids who probably have never played this, right? Because Rock Band hasn't been popular for years now.
6 years.
So I have an 8-year-old who never even knew about Rock Band, who's going to flip out when he finds out he can play drums and video games at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, Norm, for probably like 2 or 3 years, every other Friday at my house in Pacifica, there were anywhere from like 10 to 30 people playing Rock Band. It was while you were in Chicago.
So do you still have all the instruments?
I have complete sets of everything. I might not have microphones at work. I'll have to look.
And it looks like the new ones basically are just kind of the same as the old ones, right?
So it's unclear. Like they're not changing from talking to Pope, it seems like they're not changing the form factor at all. So it'll be the same top 5 buttons and then the speed buttons down low, strummer, the whammy bar, the buttons, all that stuff is the same. I think it's unclear if the Xbox instruments are going to continue to work with the Xbox One. We'll have to find that out. The wired ones, I would guess, have a better chance than the wireless ones, but that's all TBD. I think they said the game's coming out end of this year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or did they even give a date?
I think you're right.
This year.
I'll just get a mic. I'll bring my own mic and I'll sing.
And not all of the DLC will come over because always there were always a couple of songs that wouldn't, like from Rock Band 1 to Rock Band 2 they didn't come over, and from Rock Band 2 to Rock Band 3 they didn't come over.
Yeah, I'm sure it's tricky licensing.
So there's always some licensing stuff that's a problem. Beatles you won't be able to transfer, which sucks.
I know, because the Beatles stuff was the most fun.
And you couldn't import that into Rock Band 3.
No,
cover.
it was always a standalone thing.
And the keyboard's going away. So no keyboard.
I forgot
in
there
Rock
was a
Band
keyboard.
3.
And the pro instruments in general, right? They're
Pro
not bringing
instruments
the
are
pros
yeah.
back.
Rocksmith does that stuff, and
Yeah.
like there's no need to compete with them. They want to
Right.
make a fun party game,
Right.
So yeah, I couldn't be more excited about it. They didn't show it at PAX. I was a little bummed. I was hoping I would get like a sneak peek or something, but I could not be more excited about Rock Band. And hopefully this time, since Activision only makes like 2 games a year, they won't try to release like 35 Guitar Hero games and fuck up the whole thing this go around.
Yeah, I hope not.
So anyway,
So what are the two paths?
So
on one hand,
on one hand, we can talk about all the Apple stuff that was announced on Monday, which is the new stuff.
we're going to do that.
We are absolutely going to do that. Which path do we
Just a
take
question
first?
of which order.
And the other path is all the VR stuff.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
on to extensively talk about, because Jeremy, you're on, and Gary, we just had you try some of the stuff out.
I had an order here. There was a little tiny bit at the top about the GDC stuff, and then there was a great big 3 pages
There's a
All right.
about the
the
Apple.
path
There
is
it goes.
right here.
Let's do the Apple stuff. Letting you guys know out there.
That way, if you don't want to hear the
first.
Apple stuff, no, we're doing GDC first, and then you
Oh.
can skip. If you don't want to listen to the Apple stuff, you can just skip and come in at the end and hear us say goodbye in 2.5 or 3
Okay.
hours.
All right. GDC and VR stuff first.
Do we want order of importance, or start with go reverse order of importance? I think maybe
We already did like
reverse-
a brief recap already at the end of last week's podcast. I want Jeremy to dictate, because
Yeah.
Jeremy's
an
was not
aficionado.
on last week.
Okay. So what are my choices?
What do you want to talk
Jesus
about from
Christ,
GDC,
it's hard.
from virtual reality?
Well, okay, so I had never tried anything that I tried at GDC this year. You guys had already tried Crystal Cove.
Crescent
I'm
Bay.
sorry, Crescent Bay, which is the new Oculus prototype. That's the first time I ever tried that. So let's start there. I tried that. I didn't think that it was really much better than the DK2. You guys came out of that first experience thinking, okay, I can sense a better resolution. There's a better sense of presence. Maybe the tracking is better.
The audio stuff.
You like the optics. I didn't really get into any of that. I felt like it was maybe a slight improvement over what I'd already experienced.
This is Crescent Bay?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is something that they first showed in September last year, and at this point, coming into GDC, which they still had a big Oculus booth for private demos, Crescent Bay was everywhere. It was out on the floor. Crytek had it out in the open, the booths. People could take pictures of the device. Weta was there at GDC, and they were showing an exclusive demo that they had developed with Unreal.
Yeah,
I
that
believe.
Smaug thing,
It was
right?
Thief in the Shadows was what it was called. And
How did you control that Thief in the Shadows?
You
thing?
don't.
you don't.
Oh, it's
Just like
okay.
all of their demos, you just stand there, and it's sort of like what would you say? Like it's like a movie, but it's a first-person perspective on the movie.
Okay.
And then also there's the story time.
Same kind of thing.
Same kind of thing. And that was something they showed at, I believe,
Sundance.
which was they have Oculus now has a department developing and experimenting with telling short interactive is a loose word, but like 5 to 10 minute interactive movies where you can look around and events happen. It's kind of similar to when Google and Motorola and Google had their kind of skunkworks project for the first Moto X, where you can kind of pan the phone around and watch a story follow along. They've done 3 of those, I believe. Similar to that. So it was-
Did you get to try that?
yeah, so we tried Thief in the Shadows, we tried the Weta demo,
Yeah.
or the Storytime demo, and Jeremy, it was your first time on Crescent Bay. From a technical standpoint, you'd used DK2 a lot. What did you notice, just as difference between DK2 and Crescent Bay?
It was more of a content demo for me. Like I say, I didn't notice much of a qualitative difference at all in the VR tech. It seemed,
Which is strange, because
Well, that's the first time I've heard that. I've heard most people that I've spoken to have tried it. And I have a DK2 at home, but I haven't got to try Crescent Bay yet. But people who have tried it have mostly said it's significantly better.
and I'd heard that, and maybe my expectations were too high.
Yeah.
Because when I put it on, I didn't feel like this is different. It felt like what I'd already seen from Oculus.
well, what is
before.
it that? What are the main points of improvement between DK2 and Crescent Bay?
I'll tell you the main points. One is it's 70 instead of 75 hertz, it's 90.
Okay.
And they had said that 75 hertz is a
base.
really good floor for virtual reality to eliminate juddering. So all the games needed to run at 90 frames per second solid or higher. So for those demos, they are actually running the GeForce Titan X for a few of those demos. That video card isn't even out yet. It's from NVIDIA. The other thing was that the camera was mounted, the positional tracking camera, which the DK2 has, that camera that you put on top of your monitor or a tripod, is now mounted on top of the corner of a room, has a wider field of view so you can actually stand in those demos. So qualitatively, the demos that they produced for Crescent Bay were different from DK2 because you're standing in them, in this 4 foot by 4 foot
Right,
square.
so it's not a big space you're moving around in. I'm pretty sure that the DK2 sensor will let you stand within and walk around within 4 feet, 4 foot square if it's far enough away.
I don't think the cables are long enough. Is the big issue
For what? For the DK2?
Yeah.
Also, it doesn't have the tracking sensors in the back.
That's true. It doesn't have the reverse ones.
And how close is this iteration to what they say they're going to ship to consumers?
No one knows.
They
So
aren't
I will
saying.
say that as of last September, when they first showed it at their convention, Oculus Connect, they had said that at that point it was already 6 months old, that technology. So
presumably
it's already, by the time their final product comes out, it will be, generations ahead in terms of their prototypes. But whether that's actual difference in terms of, what screen they're using, what their targets are for frame rate, I can't see them wanting to go more than 90 frames per second because games aren't going to, you're not going to be able to get games to run at 120 hertz.
I was just going to say one of the things that some of the developers, because I talked to a bunch of developers who are building VR games at PAX East, and one of the things that they said is, look, we have to, if we need to hit 90 frames a second, we have to know that more or less from the time we start creating assets.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that from the beginning, then it affects everything down your pipeline.
Now, if I did an AB 75 hertz to 90 hertz, maybe I'd notice something, but it's the kind of change that is so subtle that maybe it's subliminal and it's just something you'll end up taking for granted.
It may also be something you're not sensitive to. Like some people are much more sensitive to frame rate flicker and drops than I am, than others. So it may be that somebody who's prone to motion sickness doesn't have that effect at 90 hertz, but does at 75.
It's hard to tell with their demos because they're all standing demos. Every single thing that I saw, you are standing in a single place and things happen around you.
So you did actually get the full Crescent Bay suite of demos.
I didn't because I thought he was going to show me everything. I got to see.
You didn't get the suite was like it's kind of like a demo, like a 3D Mark style demo reel with 2 to 3 minute segments.
I saw the dinosaurs.
Yes, but that was a Crytek one.
So like at CES for Oculus, we saw it was like a low poly new aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
There was a dinosaur in the museum. There was a lean into a tiny cityscape thing. There was
A mirror with a floating head.
right, like a magic mirror.
I saw
and
that.
maybe two
Oh,
others.
you did?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But
I guess.
every single one of those, you're standing still.
Huh.
You could lean and move around.
Yes, but the camera doesn't move through space. That's when motion sickness tends to happen for people.
Oh, so the ones that did they do the vertigo one where you stand on the edge of the
Yes.
rooftop and look down?
Yes.
I had to step forward a foot to be able to look over the edge
Really?
when I did it.
Yeah. Well, when I spawned inside the little miniature city, I had to back up because I was inside of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but there's still just a like you said, a 4 foot square that you move around in, and I think that that's a great way to demo VR to new people because minimizes the chance of VR sickness.
Just out of curiosity, did you see the Valve stuff first and then the Oculus stuff, or did you do it the
No.
other way? Okay.
Yeah, which was definitely the way to go.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have been
Like,
more
oh, this is all a turd sandwich.
Right.
So we gave Jeremy the Crescent Bay demo, and it was interesting. I think also the other big difference is optics. So with DK2, it uses a 1920 by 1080 or a 1080, essentially a 1080p screen, OLED screen. And we don't know what screen is being used in Crescent Bay, but the lenses have some type of diffusion because they're Fresnel lenses or something where the screen door effect is minimalized. It's not it's not like a rigid grid that you see. I don't know how that optically works, but some of the artifacts of that, and you notice this, Jeremy, and we've noticed it now having done Crescent Bay a while, is that there's this kind of a dirty window look. Someone described it as. I don't know if you.
I noticed like a smearing, like a stretching of light of pixels when they would leave the center of the screen.
Right.
So when they would go off to the periphery, they would become more and more stretched
So
out.
like when you're using your eyes to look rather than turning your head to look
Yeah,
at
for
a
me,
different
as
thing.
of
No.
DK2 being the most
when I move my head
recent
and the pixel,
thing that I tried, that screen door, you can very clearly, if you focus your eye, and you can't help yourself from doing it sometimes, if you kind of focus your eyes a certain way, you can very, very clearly see that grid, that
Right.
screen door
That's
effect.
true of everything I saw at GDC, even the Valve stuff.
Okay.
The Valve stuff, they definitely are using frontal lenses, but you can, like, I have bad vision, as we all know. When I was wearing my contacts, I didn't see the screen door as much with the Valve thing as I do with Crescent Bay.
Okay.
So in terms of like, you can't put, 10 million pixel 4K screen yet and render that at 90 frames per second inside these glosses. So to minimize the screen door, they change the lenses to kind of blur them, to diffuse them somehow. But you have artifacts with that.
So they're putting Vaseline on the lens.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
So because there's that, optical Vaseline, as we'll call it, there's some light smearing.
There's your title for this episode. by the
Optical
way.
Vaseline.
I'll write that down right now.
You have light smearing, where if you move your head, the edge of frame, the light does kind of like drag on. There is definitely this kind of dirty window effect where it looks like washed out colors a little bit.
The pixel distortion that Jeremy mentioned, when I think back on it now, I totally remember seeing it's almost like my eyeglasses need a lot of correction, and when you look through the edges or move your head quickly on bright light, then you see red and blue. I don't think your prescription's big enough, Norm, but with thick lenses, especially toward the edge, you always get a red blue separation. I think that's what you're talking
It's not
about.
a red blue separation. It's not chroma. It's almost like someone dragged the light.
Yeah, it's like the GTA, brake light effect in rain.
Oh, okay.
Where the lights stretch out.
Yes.
Like trails.
Yeah.
Trails.
As if
Yeah.
you're tripping on mushrooms
Exactly,
or something,
yes.
and you can see through time.
Yes.
Okay.
But you see that on the edge, regardless, whenever there's a white spot. White especially
Yeah,
was
anything white,
noticeable. So that was Crescent Bay. And then we also gave Jeremy the STEM demo, the sixense STEM demo.
lightsabers.
The lightsaber demo. And this was, sixense was it's a company that made the magnetic motion tracking technology behind the Razer Hydra. And they launched a Kickstarter for STEM, which are these controllers, wireless controllers that have positional tracking. And they made a demo without the Star Wars license, that was basically lightsabers, dual lightsabers, a lightsaber training demo. And a droid would fly around and fire blasters at you, and then you could deflect them or swat at the droid. What did you think about that demo?
That was the first time I'd ever had any kind of peripheral inside the VR space.
You mean a thing that there was a physical version that mapped to a virtual version?
Yes. Now I've done like gamepad versions. Like there's I think a SNES emulator where you look down on your lap and the gamepad does what you do with your gamepad. But
Yep.
this is different than actually moving around something that you're holding in VR space.
And
Now-
you can hold the gamepad anywhere, and it doesn't
Exactly, it doesn't move in the
represent that
game.
movement. Yeah.
Right, but this would. So the stem moves around in VR along with your hands, and you're holding.
It seems like,
Lightsabers.
especially for like a console solution, or maybe PC as well, what we're moving towards with the controllers that you see Valve had on display, and obviously Morpheus on the Sony side is meant to utilize the Move controllers, and maybe this is what will resurrect the Move controllers from the grave they're currently in, is that these proprietary, two-handed motion-sensitive controllers are a key
Yes.
part of whatever VR experience you're going to wind up having,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
I would
hard
say
one.
once if you went to GDC and you tried either Valve or the STEM thing, you realize how important that is to a complete VR experience.
Or Morpheus.
I
which
assume
had-
more-
Or
Yeah.
Morpheus this year, because I don't remember them using the Move last year.
They did.
Not until E3, actually. The GDC ones were all standing or gamepad.
Right.
The ones at E3, you
Had a
used
bow
the
and arrow.
Morpheus to a bow and arrow or a mace, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Did
So-
you try Morpheus as well? Or
No,
weren't able to
unfortunately
get it?
not. No,
Okay.
but for me, I don't care so much because it's its own platform, and I know I'm going to buy that anyway.
Okay.
So there's no competition on PlayStation.
Okay.
You get it or you don't.
So is it going to come down? I mean, we'll talk about the Valve system, sure, but like, are we now? It's interesting going from the Oculus clearly with the first ones in, and that was going to be the platform, but now it looks like there might actually be like a VR format war that's going to happen.
Yes.
My hunch, like right now, we're basically with VR at the pre-3DFX Voodoo launch days, right? Nothing's really out yet. Everybody's building 3D accelerators. There's no common language to use them. OpenGL is a thing that exists. We might pull it in. Some people are talking about making APIs that'll be cross-platform, cross-headset. At this point, until products are out, it's too soon to talk about that stuff, I think.
But clearly, Valve is going to make a serious go of it.
Yes.
When they have some
Oculus isn't
lift.
going anywhere soon with Facebook's investment. So
And Sony is committed to doing
both
something.
of these things are going to be consumer products on the market soon that you have to choose between. So I think there's going to be an element of like grabbing up exclusive titles, and there'll probably be a lot of cross platform titles, but it feels already like the beginning of a new console generation.
But there's a common language among headsets in terms of in terms of research and optics and the things you can do on whether it's Valve, whether it's Oculus or Sony or even something like Razer, an open source one. There's a common, you can do common things with APIs and the engines, with Unity, with the plugins. But I think coming out of GDC, we realized that VR is going to be a platform that's going to be more than the headset. And it's going to be tough to get a developer to develop for both Oculus and Valve if Oculus has no controllers.
So the thing,
so that's the thing. We just said that this is going to be a key part of it, but Oculus is not showing controllers, motion controllers.
What I came out of GDC thinking, and I'm a huge Oculus fan. I mean, I was a very early backer. I've been on their forums. I love the company, but it was a big misstep not to have controllers at GDC this year, because that is a massive part of, if we're going to talk about Valve eventually, of that whole experience.
but why not? Why show your hand if you're not going to ship something for 6 or 9 months?
Because developers need to get it.
Exactly.
I'm sure that they know at this point. Oculus has been courting developers for the last 2 years, 3 years. They have a database full of people who are building stuff for their program. And they can look and see who's building good stuff and reach out to them directly without having to go to the masses at GDC.
And I will say this: the developers I talked to, who have worked with Oculus in the past, they said that right up front, they have asked Oculus about it, and Oculus has nothing to give them.
Okay,
if they have something, I'd be very surprised, because I think they would have shown it.
To take a step back, I talked to some folks at PAX East who are building games for Gear VR, Oculus, and Valve, the Valve VR, the Vive, and all that stuff. And they basically said, look, porting the games from one platform to the other doesn't seem like it's going to be more than a few months of work for the types of game. Like, these are small indie teams with 3 to 5 people. They're looking at how easily can we bring it over, and these are people that said they'd talk to both sides.
As long as you have some sort of parity on the type of controller you're using.
Well, the controller is the big question. Yeah. These were mostly gamepad experiences, so like that stuff will be more straightforward. But we're talking about a relatively small amount of work to get the HMD and all the other stuff going.
Sure.
And then whether they port to Oculus and STEM or Oculus and Oculus's controller, that's.
But it's when you put the Oculus on, I just did it when I did the Gear VR demo. You so automatically just instinctively want to reach out and touch things that's what the controller part of it satisfies.
Yeah, and
right.
We'll go back
to not have that seems really weird, and it's really interesting to me just how quickly it's evolved. You go from Oculus, it was a Kickstarter. Who knows? Does really well. Facebook buys them. Everyone starts trying it, going, holy shit, this is the real deal. And now it's going to be a big thing. Then Sony comes in, but that's kind of, like you said, it's a separate thing on its own platform. And now Steam have suddenly made it really, really interesting, because now it seems like it is this, you've gone from Oculus being the only game in town to suddenly this like really competitive thing.
They're the only ones offering an entirely inclusive platform.
Right.
Everyone,
now.
Besides Sony.
It is almost like the most.
I tried to get in at the last minute and I couldn't do it, but every single person I spoke to who experienced the Steam VR stuff said it was the best thing there.
So let's make this assumption. Let's go. I mean, before we jump into Steam, for Oculus, let's make the assumption that they're coming out with something in a similar time frame. I'm not going to say end of the year. Like in the next 12 months, Oculus will have
a consumer product.
You mean 12 months from now, or 12 months from when Valve ships?
Or 12 months from, let's say the next 18 months they'll ship something.
By December 2016.
Sure.
Okay.
If they have a controller in development, and they could be courting, very specific developers to do showcase demos, they need to get that controller out to developers, just like they needed to get the DK2 out to developers, because that was feature complete for a headset, so developers could know what to make games for, how to make those games.
So they had to add the camera because that was a big part of the whole thing.
Yeah. Right. And same with the developers that they have paraded, the Lucky's Tales and the Super Hots. Those games, the control schemes for those games were head moving in gamepad.
And what this signals to me is that they are not going to release a platform that includes a controller necessarily.
That's my assumption.
It might be something you can add in, but it's not going to be part of the package. And after this GDC, I'm telling you, it has to be part of the package.
Well, so the other thing is, we've heard rumors about Morpheus and move, and that move is just a proxy for whatever Sony's final controller is because it doesn't have the precision needed.
I can see that.
And after doing the Morpheus demo, like in the Morpheus demo, one of the things you could do is wave a gun around basically, and in that. It always. I noticed this after doing the Valve thing, but the scale of the gun and your arm length and all that stuff was always kind of off.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Valve now? Is it time?
Yeah.
Yep. Let's talk about the Valve demo.
So when you go into the Valve room and you put the headset on, normally when you do a VR demo, you put the headset on, then you stick out your hands and somebody drops the controller in your hands. You kind of fumble around and grab it. With the Valve thing, did they do this for you too? You put the goggles on and then he held the controllers out in front of you and you reached out to grab them and they mapped in the physical world exactly where they were in the virtual.
I saw you guys discuss that after you walked out of the
Holy
demo.
shit.
And that's what I was laughing about with Norm heading into that. And that's the story that I've sort of told people about GDC this year, even before I tried it, was that is how accurate it was.
Yeah.
It was exactly where you thought it would be.
Like with the first hand, I was tentative, right? I reached and I expected to kind of fumble.
Yeah.
And with the second, I just reached out and grabbed it. I was like, hey, can I do that again, actually? and he laughed.
There are two things going on there. One is that there's precise positional tracking, not just on the head side, but also on two controllers, external objects, one-to-one, where your brain thinks that it's exactly 3.5 feet away from you. It is 3.5 feet. The other thing that's going on is that there is a modeling of that rigid object. Whatever that weird shape of that controller is, of the Valve controller, it's not a floating baton in space. It is a floating exact model of that object, contours, circle, and all.
Right.
So you know when you're picking it up, it's not just gripping.
And that's
a
what
block.
makes VR super compelling. It's not just the ability to kind of look around and feel like you're really in the middle of this, spherical real space, but the ability to reach out and the one-to-one mapping between I'm reaching out and that thing is exactly. My sense of touch and my sense of sight are totally lined up, even though they're in different realities.
Yeah.
So that is really, really compelling.
So and the other thing that Valve got right is the scale. So the Sony stuff, it felt like you kind of had fat hands, like you were wearing foam hands on top of your normal hands. With this, it felt like it was 1-to-1,
and
maybe
Sony,
a little tiny bit small.
And you point out the Sony in the London Heist demo. It looked weird when you're holding a gun. Part of that is because the modeling, they actually included a body modeling of your arm and your hand reaching out and holding that. Valve, maybe they were smart about this. They did not include your body is still invisible, and so the only points of reference you have is your head and your sight movement and these floating objects. The things that they know they can track perfectly are the only things they want to show.
And not just the objects themselves, but there's these two analog pads on the object that when you touch them with your thumbs, little white dots appear in VR space where your thumbs are.
They're Steam controller pads, basically.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that added another element of feedback from VR into my brain that
So what are the
made it feel
actual
even more
what are
real.
the actual demo experiences that Steam
Well, the
showed?
first thing you do is you inflate a balloon.
Okay.
And it comes out of your controller. And
Right.
it's a physics model. So you choose the color with the wheel, and then when you press it down, out comes a red balloon. And
Right.
then you can bat it with these controllers. I would have done it for half an hour.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
And something else to understand, because it is a room. So the way the Valve system works, it's called Lighthouse, a technology that they are letting other hardware makers adopt if they want. You have these base stations. They're wireless. They're essentially dumb GPS satellites that you put in opposite corners of the room. And it's called Lighthouse because it is a spinning laser, a spinning light. And these lights, pulse at very a fast rate, many lasers, thousands of times a second. And the sensors are on your glasses and on the controllers. It's not, you think about Oculus, Gary, the camera is the sensor,
Right.
and it tracks lights like the on your headset.
Yeah.
The IR lights, infrared lights.
This is the other way.
The camera is on the headset with these small dots. Those are actually optical sensors, and the lights are coming from the room.
And
Okay.
what they need is reflections or laser impacts from 3 to 5 lasers on a handful of
Direct
sensors.
from the lasers.
Direct from the laser. Yeah, I got that wrong in the video when we talked about it before. It's not. I thought that the lasers were painting a grid on the room like the Kinect does, and then using that information to come back. But it's actually working the other way. The lasers are hitting the sensors on the thing, and because the lasers spin in a predictable way, it's able to basically triangulate the position of the sensor relative to the 2 laser stations in the room.
So you
based
can't use
on,
it. Right, you can't use it in
Yeah.
the Hall of Mirrors.
No, you couldn't use it in a hall of mirrors. Although some mirrors seemed like it wouldn't be a problem. There was glass in that room that we were in.
Yeah,
not a ton.
they said some bounces, the optical sensors and they could discard some of the bounces.
I want to see it under
Wait,
camera
so
without
the
it.
Yeah,
Valve
that's what I
solution
wanted to.
doesn't require that you set up a camera or anything in the room.
But so think of it, instead of having, you think of GPS satellites, right?
Yeah.
The way GPS satellites work, as long as your phone can pick up signals from, 3 or 5 satellites, then the phone knows where it is.
Right.
Because it does triangulation.
Yeah.
So this is like that, as long as your headset or controllers can pick up 5 of those optical sensors can pick up the lasers, it can figure where
But wait,
it is.
I don't need to install lasers
You
in
do.
my
You
house.
do.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. So I
2
do need to do that.
lighthouses.
Okay.
At least 2. The dev kit will come with 2.
Okay.
But one of the advantages then is just like with GPS, the system gets smarter and better as you add more satellites.
Right.
This system can get more expansive and smarter and better and cover more areas where you would occlude them by adding more base stations.
And conceivably, like in a world where the machine wasn't tethered to a PC, you could fill like a high school gym with 10 or 20 of these things,
Yeah.
and then have 30 people walking around in VR inside one room,
And I gotta say,
which I'm ready for.
the
Put me in.
the tracking in this system is incredible. It hits all the right notes.
So I mean, I'm gonna go like when I put the glasses on and grabbed the controllers, the effect. I'd had little tiny tastes of presence before. Like when we did the couch nights demo at GDC last year with Oculus, and you were sitting on a couch and you looked down, the controller was in your lap just like you had it, and you kind of looked over and I was like, oh, there's Norm. Okay, there's blah blah blah. Like that, you kind of felt like you were inhabiting the virtual reality, but it was like on and off, on and off, on and off, just here and there. When we did the Morpheus demo where you're in the shark cage and it tracked your head height and you were at the right height in the cage because it knew how tall you were, and you bent your knees and ducked down, you looked down, your knees bent. I assumed that you had to have like the virtual representation of your body to get the hit of presence. And basically, from the moment I put these glasses on and grabbed the controllers and did the balloon inflation, I was hooked. It is intoxicating.
Yeah.
Like it is a intensely pleasurable experience that I would like to do again and again.
Think about all the demos in the past year that we've been really excited about when you watch our videos. I'll tell you, Control VR, which we use at E3, we were really excited about. That's the one where we strapped on these the IMUs on our arms and
that
body.
was pretty rough, but I was excited.
We were definitely excited about it, even though you're right, the tracking was not nearly as precise as this. We've been excited about STEM before. The lightsaber demos we were really excited about. We had a lot of fun in that.
I was much more excited about the lightsabers than the
Yep.
previous one.
Yeah, we've been excited when we talk about Elite Dangerous, playing with that when we're using the throttle and joysticks, the ones that are modeled in game. All of those have some type of tracking, whether it's actual positional tracking or an abstracted version of that. That's more than just your head.
Like when the throttle moves in Elite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just
And
like
it's-
when
and it's mapped is
Just
the
like when
important thing.
you're using couch nights, when you look down, that tinge that you feel of presence isn't because your body is being tracked, but because it's abstracted, almost like your body, your head skeletal movement is mapped to a virtual model. The gamepad is where you think the gamepad is, but you lose it as soon as you actually move.
Yeah, so it's not a question of attaining presence so much as sustaining presence.
Right,
Sustaining it.
Because with the couch nights, what I looked at the table and I wanted to rest my foot up on the table in front of me. And I put my foot out. There was no coffee table there, and the leg didn't move in the game. And I was like, oh, well, that's that.
Right.
And then with Control VR, even though the tracking might not have been the best system, and they needed to polish that, and the latency wasn't the best, even adding the ability to track at that point your arms and your fingers in that demo added so much.
It was very cool. But the scale was off. Like the
What
scale
else-
was very bad in that.
What else did the Steam demo let you do other than inflate a balloon?
Can I talk about the one I did?
Yes,
Because I only
please
did one. I went to an actual game demo for Job Simulator, which was one of several that these guys saw. So Job Simulator is it's a cartoony world. It's a cartoony kitchen, sort of in TF2 style graphics, where you are presented with instructions on making food and then serving it up and hitting a bell to bring the waitress. And so you have to grab objects off of the table and then drop them into a bucket, for instance, to make soup. Like it says 2 mushrooms and a tomato and some milk. So you got to grab those with the controller. So you put the controller near the mushroom. You click the button to grab it and your hand does that. Does it? It is a hand in that
it's a
demo,
hand.
right?
It's a white hand.
And then you let go physically to drop it. And they're all very large. It's easy to do. But I ran out of mushrooms. And I'm looking around, looked all over the room, and I couldn't see one. And this voice speaks to me.
Because you're wearing a headset.
And,
Right.
and the voice says, where else would you keep more
Is
mushrooms?
the voice like the person in the room with you?
And I thought, is that part of the game? But no, it was the Valve guy speaking to me through a microphone, which I thought was a brilliant way to conduct a demo because it keeps you in the space.
Right.
So anyway, I went over to the kitchen, to the fridge, and I opened the fridge and then I started to get a feel for how interactive this room is. And so, I take things out of the fridge, I throw it in there, I have to use the microwave, and then I start throwing things. You can batter around the pans, and there's this whole space that you can continually experiment with.
Sandbox.
Yeah, it's a sandbox kitchen essentially, and that was one of many spaces they plan to have in the game.
Did you throw the bread at the robot?
No.
You could throw stuff at the robot.
No. I broke an egg.
So this was made by the Alchemy Labs guys. They made Complete Disregard of Gravity and Shoot Many Robots and
This game
a bunch
is
of other stuff.
much better than in my opinion.
Well, was not a VR game originally, and then ended up this game. I had a very similar experience to you. I was like, oh right, well, you can go open the fridge and you can look behind things. You can pick things up. You can crack the egg. You can throw things at the robot. That was fun.
It escalated for me though from tentative what can I do in this space to just madly rushing to finish the meal because there more and more come up on the screen. You're given a limited amount of time, and I felt so comfortable moving around in that space.
Eventually, I felt like I would have done the normal chopping that I do at home with the fast chop.
How do you actually physically move around? Like if you need to walk over to your fridge.
So the Valve space is supposed to be compatible with a 15 by 15
Foot.
Up to.
space,
Right.
Yeah.
And their demo rooms were all a little less than that.
So
but
one of the
Right, how's that going to work though in reality? Because not everyone has that
So-
in their house.
isn't that a good question?
No, I asked actually, and I have an answer.
Great.
So one of the things you do when you set up the room and you calibrate the room for the VR thing. So you set the lasers where you want them, and then at least right now you take one of the controllers and you move it in a lap around where you want that edge to be. This is what Chet told me.
That's one of the things you can do, but right now it's typing in. You're typing in dimensions, and you're moving. You're not moving around obstacles.
So
right
when
now,
he said-
you are positioning.
I'll
the
bet
corners.
Will's got to be right though for the final.
For the
right?
final
He
one,
explicitly
yes.
told
Yeah.
me is that their intention. This was conveyed to me as the way you set it up is
Yeah.
that you walk around the obstacles that you don't want to be in the room in the play field.
Oh, so it
And
doesn't have to
then
be a square.
It does. That is unclear.
See, that's the thing. Right now.
I asked, and he was like, "Yeah."
So Gary, imagine you're on the holodeck, right? The Valve room is like a holodeck, and you're there, and you're interacting with Moriarty, and he wants you to walk off in the distance and solve a mystery. But your room is only 15 foot by 15 foot.
Right.
If you walk to the edge and you're about to hit your real physical wall, what Valve does is in their software, every game will have this. The holodeck wall will fade in, will alpha in. and
First,
you'll-
you see a line on the ground.
you'll see a blue grid,
Yeah.
and this will tell you, oh, you're about to hit your real wall. You can't walk beyond this space. And so game developers, and this obviously this space is gonna be different for everyone. You might have a room that's dedicated that is 15 foot by 15 foot. You might be playing this in a bedroom where your realistic walking area is more like 3 feet by 5 feet.
Right.
So you will have to create the boundary. Now, whether that boundary is going to be a rectangular room, or whether that boundary can draw around your desk, draw around your bed, and around your couch.
around the coffee table.
Yeah, this is still the kind of the I'll believe it when I see it part, because it reminds me a little bit of those kind of fantasy living rooms that Microsoft thought everyone had for the Kinect. Like no one has a room like that with all that free space.
Yeah.
And as a developer, that's why the games that seemed like they were the best ones in the demos were they were sandboxes, and they were boxes, they were rooms. Like the job simulator Alchemy Labs game, they said that their scenarios are going to be 10 rooms, different jobs, like a kitchen, a bedroom, some type of spaceship console. Or I'm making this up now, but
But small,
you're not going to be
you have to
running
build the
around.
game. Yeah.
You're not going to be running around Call of Duty style because they haven't. There is no way for them to convey moving in a larger space when your physical space is that big without adding nausea.
The thing I was thinking about as I've been thinking about this almost nonstop since we left the demo on Wednesday, is that it'll have to be like, if you think about like old school NES adventure games, stuff like Deja Vu and Shadowgate, must have been Shadowgate, like those games that basically took place in rooms, and then you hit a button to transition to the other area. You're not going to walk between areas in
Well,
this.
I wonder if
you're going to
there's-
hit a button to
I mean,
go.
yeah,
I
you're
think.
right. You're not going to be running through an entire jungle like in Call of Duty, nor would you want to, because you would get exhausted really
Right,
fast,
it's
even
not
if
fun.
you had the space.
Yeah.
But I can maybe kind of imagine a hybrid where you're doing the old-fashioned push the thumbstick forward to move a long distance, and when you stop and like want to peek around a corner or whatever, you could actually do some one-to-one.
I'm sure no one is going to demo that though, because there's such a high probability for VR sickness with that kind of thing.
Right.
They've said, Valve has said, a system perhaps where you can walk in a 10 by 10 space, but when you walk in the outer boundary, then that's when you actually the space
It
shifts around
accelerates.
you.
I mean, ideally,
That
what
doesn't
I would
work.
like to do down the road, and I know some people like Ben Chair at Polygon are already doing this, like have just turned a room into their holodeck, like they cleared it out, and that's their VR room.
That's his plan.
That's my plan.
Yeah.
Who are you going to kick out?
It's a holosuite. It's a Quark's bar. I gotta have Dabu girls.
But you need
the
to
lowest bidder.
You've got to have you have to be willing to, and especially now you've got to convince
Yeah,
the wives
I
that
don't.
this is
I
going
don't
to
have
work,
a,
right?
Like I would have to kick my kid out of her room at this point, or get rid of my office, one or the other. Like this isn't.
You've got to have completely redundant, because that is a luxury space.
And
Well,
so-
here especially. I mean, we're just to be clear, we're in a weird bubble here because we live in San Francisco, and if you live in the rest of the world, people have bonus rooms and fucking garages and basements and stuff like that.
No, you don't
And
have
this
that
is
here.
a possibility. Here, it's not. It doesn't apply.
as a game developer, let's say a million people buy the Valve system. Not a million people, maybe a fraction of those. You have to develop a game for kind of like the lowest common denominator, or make it scale, walls to shift in. I don't know if they can do that. If they can say there's 3 tiers of this game:
I was thinking the
big
same thing,
space,
yeah.
middle space, or small space, and develop for that. And that goes back to maybe that's the reason why Oculus doesn't have a positional tracking controller to show, is because
Lowest
they have
common
said
denominator.
lowest common denominator is the gamepad.
This could actually be a really popular application for VR in housing markets like San Francisco, New York, and London, where you set aside a little room in your tiny house, and you go and live in there, and it just generates a much larger version of your house that you
Yeah.
all pretend you live in.
You just can't walk past that wall.
Right.
Yeah, thump. The thing I wondered, like one of the things I asked about was how you build the games to accommodate different sizes, and like they basically nobody knew. The other thing that when talking to people from Valve and HTC while you were doing the interview, that came up is that they all they're still experimenting to figure out what the new way to convey like cinematic information is. Like they're one of the reasons that Valve is starting this with indies is because they feel like they can move faster than your entrenched AAA studios, and they're more likely. It's cheaper for them to experiment, and they can iterate faster. Like one of the things that they found at Valve is that you can have a button that flips you 180 degrees, and you'd think that would be really disorienting, but if they handle it the right way, it doesn't make people sick. So it's about like doing hard cuts instead of transitions or warping the perspective. I'm making this
Yeah.
up,
And-
but
and
they said
Ken-
that there are ways that make people sick, and there are ways that don't make people sick, and it's like in video games to date, we've stolen from the language of film really, really, really extensively, and a lot of that stuff just doesn't work. Like you can't do. Clock wipes. It doesn't make sense to do a clock wipe in VR.
Or pan the camera out.
Or pan the camera, or take control of the camera at all.
There's been a ton of cockpit games, and there's been a lot of what Carmack called gaze shooters.
No cockpit games this GDC.
And I've been happy with those. I think Elite Dangerous is the most immersing experience I've had at home.
because
But
of the abstracted tracking with
And
the
there's no motion sickness because
Yes.
I am stationary in my cabinet in my
You have to start
gotta get a
somewhere,
game.
and the
I've got-
language is going to evolve. But it's interesting that right now some of the stuff that seems to work the best is the stuff where you are as a person static.
Yes.
Like you're sat in a cockpit, or you're sat in a
Movie theater.
where it doesn't have to worry about how you actually move through the space. To look around and interact with objects that are in front of you is really compelling. We're just barely, this is still like silent movie era of figuring out how to do this stuff.
Yeah, but that said, now having moved around in that kitchen, that's all I want to do.
Right. I mean, So there were a couple of moments in the loop that Norm and I did where I reacted instinctively, like on a reflex level to VR, which was a really bizarre effect. I don't know if on the deep demo, which is an underwater exploration game, basically, there was a scene where you're standing on the deck of a ship. There's a giant, either humpback or blue or some enormous ass whale swims up next to you. It looks you square in the eye, which encourages you to walk over and look at the eye really closely. And as soon as you do that, the whale starts swimming off and does like a gentle bank, and its fin comes right at your head. And I ducked out of the way. Like I didn't even think about it. It happened from a spinal reflex level. There was no conscious thought that, oh, this isn't real, it's not going to hit me. I was going to get whacked by something huge, and I moved. And that was a moment that I was just like, oh. wow, this is never, in all of the Oculus demos and all the VR demos I've had up until this point, that was something that never happened. I never was so deep in the virtual reality that my brain was fooled to the point that it thought, oh shit, you're going to get hit, you better get out of the way.
So, the top of this, we talked about tech things like field of view, frame rate, and screen door effect and stuff like that. With Valve, I think they didn't need to have 120-degree field of view. They reached these minimums of 90 frames per second of having a good diffusing optical system for minimizing the screen door effect. But like Jeremy said, even though he could see remnants of screen door, remnants of jaggies, the content was immersive enough because of the way the demos are structured that you just got lost in the content. You got lost in. It didn't matter.
Did you notice screen door 3 minutes in?
Oh no, I didn't.
It's not about noticing. You don't think about it.
Right, I didn't
Right.
think about it. But as soon as I put it on, of course, I saw the pixels right away, and I said, okay, so this is just like every other, good VR tech right now, which is as good as we can do with the resolution that we have.
But once you focus away from that,
Right?
it's
No,
gone.
you don't think about it. And as soon as you get that interface involved, that's the game changer for me.
I think
So that's the thing. When you're sitting at a PC, as I do at home when I try the DK2, like a new demo comes out or whatever, all you're thinking about is the experience of what do you see when you look around,
Yeah.
how good is the fidelity, how good is the tracking. Excuse me, I'm still moving around with a gamepad or what have you. And that's a big part of the problem for me is as soon as I start pressing the thumbstick, like the whole idea is like you're really in the space, but as soon as I start pressing a thumbstick to move around, it breaks that illusion because that's not what you really do to move around in the real world. So once you add one-to-one, dual-fisted controllers and actually physically moving around a real space, and then that is you walking around the virtual space, that's so compelling that I think the other things like screen door just become you don't care anymore.
That's what I was trying to say is that earlier about the Oculus, the new Oculus not being a world different than the DK2. I think if Oculus used their current tech and they had handheld controllers and they allowed you to move around in a space, they would have hit 99% of the kind of presence people are talking about that they got from the Valve demo.
I agree.
I don't think it comes down to their tracking or their headset tech, although all of that from Valve hits all the right notes. They're doing great.
Well, I mean, the Valve thing has a little narrower field of view. It's more round than like mask shaped. It felt like to me, but like you, the thing that for me was the moment I reached out and grabbed those controllers and they were in the right place. I was like, oh, okay, none of the specs matter. The fact that I can see the pixels are irrelevant.
Right.
All of it. I want I want more of this feeling as quickly as I can get it. And I think if you put normal people in that don't know what to expect, it's going to blow their fucking minds.
Well, it's intuitive. It's absolutely intuitive. Head turning is an intuitive thing. Gazing, by moving your eyes, is an intuitive thing. But your hands are the things that you have the most sense memory of and familiarity with. Once your hands are in that space,
are they building any kind of rumble or force feedback into those controllers? It seems like that would help as well.
I'll tell you, the Valve ones, it doesn't just have, we talk about the circle trackpad. Those circle trackpads are the Steam controller trackpad.
There's a haptic feedback.
So they have a feedback system that isn't just vibration, it's a linear actuator that can pulse exactly where your thumb is where you feel that pressure coming back from.
Or on sides, so it can kind of steer you a little bit.
And so you get some type of resistance. And so in the climactic Valve demo, which I'm sorry you didn't get to experience, Jeremy, you're in the Aperture universe, the Aperture Science universe.
Okay.
You're playing what's essentially a Portal demo.
Okay.
Now, you're not shooting Portal guns yet, but you're in a room, I guess, because it is a room.
Like in a test chamber.
One of those
It's like in the room
side
she wakes
rooms.
up in, basically.
Yeah. And there's a drawer. The robot voice tells you to open a drawer, like one of those file drawers. And when you go to use the controller to pull the trigger, as if you're grabbing it, and pull it out, the vibrations of the controller shake to make it feel like there's resistance in
That's amazing.
the panel.
Yeah.
So, it's not like a real resistance, but it's subtle
enough to
enough.
fool you.
It's not
It's
inertial. It's the same kind of rumble you would get if the bearings that make the drawer slide out were a little bit rumbly.
And so stuff like that, there's potential for if you're talking about archery as an example, bow and arrow, and you pull the string back while you're not actually having to exert your arm to pull a string back, that type of relative tension that you get as you pull a string back and loosening, that can all be conveyed.
Well, I remember even back in the days of the Nintendo Wii actually did a fairly good job of doing that. There was a rumble when you played Wii Sports Archery. When you got to the tension on the bow, there was a rumble that actually simulated that tension.
So
fairly well.
imagine that, but a much higher degree of accuracy.
The only stumbling block I'm seeing that I don't yet understand how they're going to solve it is the real world physical space issue. If they don't want people tripping over furniture, I'm sure they'll come up with things, but sooner or later, you're going to have to clear some kind of space in your house, right? And not everyone has that.
My assumption is that even with the wife, the spouse and space limitations that you and I face, I think that I think this is the kind of thing people will not hesitate to clear their rooms for, right? You set up the room, you put the things in the corner. The nice thing about it is the lasers can stay more or less in the same place. They're relatively unobtrusive, especially since the ones that we saw weren't the final product. They're going to make them smaller and more attractive and maybe build them into TV sets and stuff like that. I don't anticipate any problems after I put my wife in this. After I clear out the room and put my wife in it, I think I won't have any problems getting the space for it.
Also, we don't know how the Valve system works with occlusion. Like STEM works regardless if you're blocking the controller line of sight to the
because it's
base
magnetic.
station, because it's magnetic. It's magnetic field. The Valve one, you need 5 points of line of sight for one sensor.
And you need multiple sensors.
And you need
right.
multiple sensors. So if we didn't try with the Valve one, you're hiding the controller beneath our arm.
They were sensitive to me walking anywhere in the room because you were in VR. They didn't want me to get between you and the lasers.
Right.
Oh, right. Other people.
Yeah.
That's right.
We have a guest bedroom that is actually, 48 weeks out of the year, it's not really being used.
There you go. Done.
That's
Problem
the
solved.
holodeck.
Yep.
I actually want to get the holodeck wallpaper.
painting.
That'd be great.
Yes.
I love it.
I gotta
Pocket
tell you,
doors.
I can't say where and when and who this was because it was super secret. But I stood in one of these holodeck type VR experiences recently at a company, and the most impressive thing is not any of the experiences they ran, but when it was just in its default mode, it was the holodeck grid. Yeah.
The loading screen.
And that was the most exciting thing because you felt like it could become anything.
Computer.
Yeah.
Arch.
Yes, it was amazing.
Arch. Door. Computer.
Why
door.
don't they sell holodeck wallpaper?
I just
the grid.
Googled it. I can't find it.
Kickstart that. Kickstart that now. This is going to be the next big thing. We should get on the ground floor of this, Jeremy. You and me will kickstart holodeck wallpaper because people are going to start making these spaces. And all it is black and a yellow grid.
That's true.
Let's do it.
No, don't do the Voyager style, which had like the weird hexagonal.
No. I want old-fashioned,
future.
classic TNG holodeck.
okay.
Jeremy also mentioned that when he was in the Valve demo, and when we were all doing the Valve demo, we were wearing headphones, and the demo operator could communicate to us. That's something we hadn't had, some type of outside interaction of voice in our head.
Right.
Which is...
We had that at Sony in E3, didn't we? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Holodeckwallpaper.com is available.
Get it, and let's do this. Let's kickstart it right now.
And that type of that makes you think of like how there can be asynchronous type gameplay experiences. The voice in your head, the Cortana, someone not in the VR space but playing with you, playing the Cortana with something else, or playing
Like on a different interface, like on an iPad or something.
Well, we talked about keep talking and nobody explodes.
Right, exactly.
Like when I was at a conference, we set it up in one room where the VR person was in one room by themselves, as if they were actually locked in the room with the bomb, and everybody else was in the other end of a speakerphone. So you have like that is an unbelievable way to play that game.
and
right?
where doing that as a headset, as opposed to just hearing the person's voice in the real room, enhances the level of immersion.
I thought that was so smart.
Yeah.
It's like the thing in the Morpheus demo where the guy hands you the phone in the game, you grab it with the Move controller, you hold it up to your ear, and you hear it only out of that ear, just like you would if you held the phone up to your ear. That kind of stuff is incredible, and there's no reason.
What's that in?
So in the Morpheus London Heist demo, you're having this this Tough is threatening you. He's threatening to blowtorch you and all sorts of bad stuff. It's like straight from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And then he gets a phone call and he says, "Oh, he wants to talk to you." So you have to hold your hand out. You grab the phone from him.
He dangles a phone in front of you like this, and then you use the Move controller to pick it up, and you can hold the virtual phone in either ear, and you'll hear it coming
cool.
out of that headphone.
As
wow.
if it was, a phone.
Wow.
So it's just like the Matrix, where if you want to place a Skype call, you got to pick up the phone, and you got an operator.
Yeah.
Find me an exit.
Oh my God. I'm so
excited about this future. Like this stuff's only going to get better, and it's just going to be great.
I literally came out of the Valve thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to go order a crate of Soylent, and I'm going to get a couch with a catheter and like a toilet in
that's
the
all you
bottom.
need.
And I'm ready to go. Just jack
So
me in.
they are going to do an SDK, right?
SDK comes out in spring, and the difference is between
It's spring in 2 weeks.
spring. Yeah, well, then it lasts for 3 months after
months,
that. So in the next
might have to get
3
one.
months, if it's available, I don't know. How
Select
available.
developers.
Yeah,
Yes.
they said it's
You have to
not-
actually make games, it
I
seems
don't
like.
know if they will off. They haven't announced how they're distributing the SDK yet.
So it might not be like Oculus where anyone with $300 can get one.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that would be smart on their part if they do that, frankly.
Well, especially if they're targeting indies, right? Don't they want to have this thing go as wide as possible?
I think that they're going to curate the list of people who get this very closely to get people who actually have a history of shipping games.
Also, the SDK will differ from what we tried. They didn't let most people take photos and video of that demo space. The controllers will be wireless in the future. They will be wireless in the SDK.
The ones that we used were 3D printed. They were clearly like prototypes that were put together now for now.
And it will come out at some price point at the end of the year. But what they're targeting for a consumer product is a headset made by HTC Vive, and this will be just the first of potentially many Steam VR headsets, but they'll be the first ones. It will come with 2 of those base stations, which you'll need for the 15 by 15 foot room, and it'll come with 2 controllers. So that is the all-inclusive package that we think really is necessary for this
Add to room.
this type of
But
experience.
still ultimately plugged, like tethered to a PC through a
Yes.
cable, right? Because
Yes.
this is the thing, in terms of like figuring out how you're going to make that space.
Yeah.
You would either have to put a dedicated PC in a space that you have,
Yep. Yep.
or figure out how to make the space around where your existing PC is, make that work.
And how are you doing the cabling?
So
Right.
are they going to do the? Are they going to provide the belt? Do we know?
They haven't said.
So the belt, actually, we should talk about
But
that
there's
because
a
it was kind of
belt?
important. Yeah, so you put a
Well,
belt
for this there was.
For cable management.
Yeah, so the belt managed cables and gave you basically one cable that came out almost like a tail. And I didn't get tangled up in the 18 minutes that I was in. There was one moment where I'd gotten a leg wrapped around and I asked the tech in the room with me if I was untangled, and he said, "Yeah, you're good." The other thing that was weird about this headset is each one has there's a liner that was removable. So they stuck on a little liner. Did they do this for you, or was it on when you? So when I went in the room, he was still replacing the liner, and there were one-use liners or single-person liners that went all the way around the edges of the glasses and completely blocked out the outside world.
Gaskets.
Yeah, it was like
Face
it was like a
gaskets.
face gasket. It was like an ass gasket for your face, I think is what Norm's getting at. And that was an interesting.
Yeah, because part of when DK2 lets me down, as it does sometimes, it's because of the light leak that you can't, that foam
Right.
edge doesn't always perfectly block it out. And you do need to have an airtight seal to feel like you're in the other reality.
And so Sony had another a novel solution for that, because the problem they had before was that you had like light leakage on the edge of your nose and above your cheekbones, and they had 2 kind of soft rubber flaps that went into that came together with a line down the middle that your nose just kind of pushed out of the way, and they rested flush against
Why
your
don't-
nose.
I mean, presumably, like diving goggles do this, right? Like scuba goggles make basically are flush to your
I
face,
don't think
so water can't.
You
get
don't
in.
want to wear scuba goggles for 5 hours.
I'll tell you this, and that goes to ergonomics. The ski goggle model, the face strap, the points of contact in your face, that's part of what holds the headset to your face. Now, because
Right.
these things are going to be heavier than that,
Right.
And Sony has it so it's not even attached to your face. Your face isn't part of your nose.
It's sitting on the top of your head, right?
It's a ring, exactly.
Right.
It's a crown, and then you're flipping the
Oh,
goggles
virtual
down.
reality crown. I would be the king of VR.
The Crescent Bay demo, and something I think Oculus did well with the Crescent Bay prototype, is structurally it's more like almost wearing sunglasses. They hook around your ear, and it's rigid.
It's
in the back,
much lighter than DK2.
and much lighter than DK2. The Valve one was surprisingly the most like your ski goggle scuba gear, because even though it had a top strap, you're still pulling it close, tugging it to your face.
Even just the Gear VR thing that I tried before we came on felt like it had a really good flush. Like there was no light leak there at all. It was really well done.
and that is like a ski goggle.
And I tell you what was part of what I liked so much about that Gear VR experience, because it was really, really good, was that it was completely untethered. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if they clearly don't have the technology to do this yet, if they're talking about belts
wireless
and cable
HDMI
management.
isn't fast enough.
But
yeah.
like that's where we need to get to for this to be really, really great, because the tethering, like, yes, you can make a really, really long cable, but you're going to get tangled up in it. It doesn't feel the same.
you got the hooks in the ceiling.
Ultimately, it's going to be a neural shunt where you put the helmet on, the halo goes on the back of your skull, and it basically just blocks signal from your brain to the rest of your body, except for your heart and your lungs and the stuff you need to live.
Sign
and
me
then
up.
you lay in the couch and it's all good to
I'll
go.
be backer number 1.
So what are you going to buy next year? I mean,
It's too soon to say. Let's not even. It's until we know what everybody's selling.
no,
we
so
can't know what
how
people
much
are
do
going
you want to
buy.
spend? Are you going to want to invest in just one
How much?
system, or are you going to want are you going to be okay investing in potentially 3 systems?
I mean, we'll see how it shakes out, but I mean, never bet against Valve, right?
That's it.
Never
Yeah.
ever bet against Valve.
Right, and they don't release things till it's ready.
Here's the other thing is the people who are making games for VR early on, the market is going to be so small that they're going to release their stuff on everything. It may come to one platform before the other on a game by game basis, but the only stuff that won't show up everywhere is the stuff that Sony's going to make. Anybody that's making and Valve and Oculus. So Oculus stuff will be on Oculus platforms, Valve stuff will be on Valve platforms, Sony stuff will be on Sony's platform. Everything else will be everywhere.
Historically, I like Valve games more than Oculus games.
And Valve games more than Sony games.
Yeah, so you know what?
I mean, if Killzone 4 is VR, that's cool.
That's cool, but if
I mean,
Half-Life 3 and Portal-
Valve obviously has the benefit of a small but highly compelling library of first-party titles that presumably would map really well to VR experiences. Like Portal in VR sounds really interesting.
Or at least that
Half-Life,
that
Team
universe.
Fortress 2 sounds really interesting in a VR environment.
I
And
would
they
totally
can build
play-
those internally to make the best use of the hardware.
You could be an engineer in VR. You just limit your space to like a 50 foot.
Well, that's
there
how
you go. You have
that's
a
how I used
controller,
to. That's how I used to
and you sit
play
there.
Team Fortress. I would just camp out, build my level 3 minigun, and just whack it with the wrench.
Yeah.
Just doing
Which
this
is what-
over hours at a time, Gary.
My wife,
Oh my God, my arm's so
wife's gonna
tired.
come in the room and sitting in the corner with the goggles, just like
Crouch down.
crouched, just whacking my my minigun.
And
my
that
Sentry.
last Valve demo was basically, using the controllers as tools to repair Portal's Atlas character. The sense of scale was so different. Even though Portal is a FPS on a 24 or 30-inch monitor.
Like I said, I think
TV.
there's going to be a little bit of a format war, and I don't know. It's one
Yeah.
thing to build GTA that can run on Xbox One and PS4. I don't know if it's the same to build a game that would just as easily run on Steam
here-
VR as it would on Oculus.
here's my
I
hope.
don't know how different they are.
Here's my hope for Oculus, and I know this won't happen, but this is my hope. Oculus should just throw in the towel, get rid of the no on their
Wow.
tech, okay? Make the Oculus Vive. Embrace what Valve has done with their tracking tech, with their controllers. Make the Oculus Vive and just sell it as a higher resolution Valve, headset.
I think
I don't think you can
so that there's controller parity, so that there's one market for software, and then focus on your own mobile platform. Keep the Gear VR thing going.
Here's the thing. Oculus hasn't shown anything new. Crescent Bay is a now 12-month-old demo, right? Like they showed it in September. They said it was 6 months old then. That was a year ago, if that's when that was new technology. They have to have been doing something in the intervening year. The panel density hasn't gone up that much. The refresh rates and all that stuff, pretty good in Crescent Bay. I think we all agree. The stuff that they've been doing has to be controller oriented. They're just keeping it in their pocket until they're ready to announce and say, look, you can buy this in 3 weeks. Here's some games.
There's no way that the controller stuff is as compelling as you say it is, because clearly it is. I don't even need to have tried it. I can imagine that that's a huge part of. There's no way Oculus doesn't have that as part of their solution.
Right. I mean,
It's
after
much more likely, I think, that they have it and they just haven't shown it.
after Facebook bought Oculus, all of a sudden Nate was super media trained and really good at not answering questions. So, let's see how it goes. Let's see
And
what
let's
they come
bear
up-
in mind, Valve is targeting November, right?
holiday.
Yeah, holiday for this.
They blinked
when
first.
I spoke to Chet, I said, when's this coming? He said November. And again, I believe Valve when they say these things. And so they have to be showing the full solution. Oculus is like, we don't know, sometime next year. So they've got more time, and they're playing perhaps a longer game. But
They're
like I
also
said, it's
playing-
amazing how this went from being Oculus to now. Who knows?
And they're playing a game on two fronts. They're playing a game on the PC. The Oculus came out of PC gaming. They're playing on that front, the Rift, the consumer product. But they also have half their team, or part of their team, John Carmack included, working on the mobile side, where the potential user base is everyone who owns a Samsung Galaxy phone, or eventually, the cell phone user, which is a much bigger audience.
Yeah, if Oculus hadn't been bought by Facebook for $2 billion, I might be looking at the Valve stuff and going, "Oh, they could be in trouble." But clearly, Facebook's not going to.
But I think Facebook wants Oculus to be successful on the massive scale. They've talked about billions of VR users.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that they're looking for like the hobbyist, the entry, for the next generation of VR to really be the ticket for it. I think that they have something on, looking at the long curve or the long term, and I think mobile's where it's at. They should just continue to iterate on that platform. And, they have a lead there.
They have to, I think, in order to get where you want them to be.
Yeah, which is Where?
Well, the glasses and the phones and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The thing that we always forget, and it's easy to forget, is that you have to have people who are willing to make the panels that have the properties that you want that are really only good for VR. And you could use them in phones also, but all the stuff that makes those panels way more expensive than a normal phone panel to make is going to be VR only applications. So in order to get to the point that every phone that you ship can be jacked into a headset, we need to be making a massive number of panels. And in order to get to a massive number of panels, you have to start small. And that's going to be the enthusiasts.
Well, no, that's going to be Gear VR. That's going to be Note and Galaxy pushing first. The enthusiast side, those panels, I mean, Valve it's not a one panel system. It's a 2-panel system.
Right.
So
I just don't think it's insane for them to give up and just embrace Valve's tech, because I don't think they want to sell hardware. Not right now. They want to own the insides. They want to be a software company.
But if you're on Valve's tech, you have to go through Steam and some system.
Why?
Because Valve's not, well, I guess Lighthouse is open, but is the rest? Not really.
Like, do you have to develop on Source? We don't know if you have to have if it's Source 2 only.
Was it, where was the cooking, the job simulator Source?
I believe all that stuff was Source. I don't think that the Portal, you have to at least have Steam running in the background.
It seems to me, if you're saying that there's going to be third-party Vives, that's the assumption, is that HTC is one of many. I don't think that they're all going to require that games be distributed on Steam.
The system's called Steam VR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's and when we talk to Gabe, Steam is their business.
So they can't do that so that they can have their own platform. Oculus.
I don't think that Oculus could do a Steam system and have and have Oculus Home to sell stuff. I think both,
if that's the case, then
both people
that's
want to
true.
own the stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to sell razor blade handles and then sell razor blades, right? Where the handle is the headset and the blades are the games and software and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Movies, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would guess that The Deep is a Steam game just because of the guy who made it worked on Killing Floor, and which is also a Steam game. I don't know if that's the case.
We also don't know. I mean, Valve, they showed in their other prototypes. They've been doing this for 3 years, working in some form of VR. We don't know why Abrash and some of the other team left.
Right. We're never going to know.
Well,
It'll be a book.
And that's something we may never know. But these are smart guys who are pioneers in, at least in consumer VR theory, and
The Valve guys.
And they went to Oculus. What they saw there was compelling.
Right. Those are smart dudes. Abrash is a smart guy.
How long ago did Abrash leave? Was it a year now?
It was after they picked up Carmack, I believe.
It was after the acquisition.
That
I
was
believe.
after the acquisition. When was that?
Was he about a year ago? Right GDC, right before GDC.
Because you could look at that timeline.
March 28th, 2014 is when they did the announcement post. So it was a little bit under a year ago.
So in the Valve area, they had all of their prototypes laid out in a timeline. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting. It was only about 3 years long.
I saw that.
They started developing VR shortly after, I guess it was before the acquisition, but it would have been
shortly after the Kickstarter launch, but before
it was
Kickstarter
after
fulfilled.
Oculus. Yeah,
I started shortly after the Oculus Kickstarter launch.
Yeah.
But before the fulfillment, which was, I believe, 2013.
and they were rough. I mean, that's when they started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. VR is a thing that the pieces have been there for a while, right? In rough form. And it was a matter of refining and assembling and connecting all the pieces and making the software good. I think that now I think at this point, given what we saw at GDC this year, the onus is on the software developers to make experiences that are worth buying into VR headsets for. That's always going to be the onus. I mean, I know if there's a new Portal game, I'm in on that day one, right?
Well, here's what I want to believe. Somebody pointed. This is not my argument. Somebody made this point to me, and I think as soon as I was, oh yeah, this makes total sense. And it's connected to Half-Life 3. Somebody said the reason why Half-Life 3 is not out yet is because they won't release something that isn't a complete game changer. Like Half-Life was a game changer. Half-Life 2 was a game changer. They are both stone cold, like, classic monuments in gaming history.
Because of storytelling and gravity.
Yeah, each one did something that had never been done before. So what is it that makes, in a world saturated by, really great first-person shooters, what is it that makes Half-Life 3 the next thing where you go, this is amazing, not just because it's Half-Life 3 and it's really good, but it's like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this.
Is it called Half-Life because it's the half-life of innovation?
Well, I think it's because I think the way that you make that is you do it in VR. and you launch this platform with, in the same way that NES had Super Mario Brothers in it, you launch this thing, and it's the thing that makes the hardware
killer
launch
app.
with the killer, gives you the killer app, and it also is the thing that makes Half-Life 3 unlike anything else you've ever played.
It's porn for that platform.
So
It's killing Betamax.
that's my prediction for what I think Valve is doing.
I think it'll probably be this Portal. They'll probably expand the Portal experience.
Half-Life 3 I think is probably too much to hope for, but much like they did with the Orange Box, where they kind of leveraged a bunch of stuff all at once, I think that this thing will launch with a VR, some kind of VR Team Fortress and some kind of VR Portal.
Yeah.
And as an extension of that, it's basically games are gonna, VR is gonna be everywhere. It's not just gonna be for games. It'll be for media consumption. It'll be for communication and all this stuff. But the thing that's gonna push, just like in the past, it's gonna push technology forward and new hardware platforms forward, is games. Oculus may in the long run with the mobile space, with they obviously have a big picture for VR, it being the next communication platform. But to get adoption to that, they need games.
They need something to drive it out enough that costs come down to the point that it's a $100 add-on.
It always comes down to killer apps, especially when you're trying to prove the concept of something completely new.
And
that's what I
gamers
think
are willing to pay.
That's what I think Valve will do. I think this thing will launch with some kind of VR themed orange box that gives a suite of experiences that are all great playable games and things that make you want to buy this thing.
It's why Oculus has hired, is a game studio, has hired developers to make software and to make story time. I don't think the story stuff, I don't think the 360, Cirque du Soleil demos, that's not the killer app.
But you have to experiment. You have to experiment to find the thing that's going to be good.
And that was the most compelling part about the Oculus demo for me, because it actually told a story. It had an emotional thrust to it. I mean, I enjoyed that most of all.
Right. I mean, until this GDC, we really hadn't seen a lot of storytelling in VR. And the London Heist was a wonderful example. That thing was really dense, really, really well kind of. It was just really good storytelling. It worked really well. It was effective. It was scary. It was fun.
In the framework of a video game.
If you think about, it's interesting how one way to figure out what it is that we actually want out of these experiences is to look at what we fantasize about in science fiction. When we've seen virtual reality in the past, whether it's Westworld, whether it's the holodeck, they're all. Even bloody Murder, She Wrote. When if you remember, there was a great virtual reality episode of Murder, She Wrote. You never see that? They took one of Jessica Fletcher. They took one of her stories and turned it into a virtual reality video game.
Perfect.
That she had to test. And Kevin Sorbo played the designer of the game. You can check this episode out. It's brilliant.
Wow.
It's on Netflix. Anyway, the point being is that whenever we fantasize about these virtual reality experiences, even with something at Westworld where they actually build the theme park, they're all story-based experiences. You all get to become a character and experience a story, whether it's Dixon Hill. They're all or Moriarty, where you're solving a crime. It's not just inflating balloons. That's a great way to make you feel like, oh, you can really do something. But ultimately, you want a story. You want to be a part of something.
And they swap out the word experience to take part in. You want agency in that story.
Right.
You want to be.
Yeah, that's the whole point. You don't want to just be a spectator.
Yeah. And that's going to be the competitive.
That's the thing. When you see a passive story, when you watch a great movie, you understand there's a separation between you and the screen, and that's why you can't interact with it. The screen's over there. There's a flat plane that there's this fictional world exists beyond it. Yeah. I can't penetrate that barrier, so I'm just going to sit here and watch like I'm watching through a window. Mm-hmm. If you create the world around me and put me in the scene, I don't know. I don't now understand why I can't interact with the world. So you'd better let me do that.
And that's where those controllers come in.
Right.
Yep. And I feel like we've had the headset only for 2 years now, and it's been like developing for the NES, and now we've finally been handed the gamepad. Now that we have an interface into that world and we know how to interface and interact with that VR environment.
Super excited.
It changes it.
Adding a proxy for your hands and the ability to walk around the environment was enough to literally make it a novel go for me from a novel, fun experience that that's cool. I'm totally into this.
Right.
To something that I literally can't stop thinking about.
But this is the year. It's great that by before the end of this year, because Valve's not going to miss that holiday window.
No, Valve's perfect.
There will be
perfect record on
There
deadlines.
will be an actual consumer thing with real games you can play by the holidays.
You heard it here first. Valve never misses deadlines, guys.
I mean, you'd be foolish to make plans for the holidays, really, because you're just going to be locked in a room with like drool. Right.
I'm going to get
I do worry about a platform war.
I worry about the human toll.
But that's
on
competition's
virtual
good for everybody, right?
It's good.
Yeah.
Guys, I literally worry about my ability to continue to remain and work in a world where I can just go home in VR at any given moment.
Start
that.
retiring.
Yeah.
You're going
for
to
retirees.
the Reg Barkley of tested.
I mean, I hope I'm not going to be pervy about it, but okay.
That was the problem, was when it starts to get pervy.
Oh, it's going to be pervy immediately.
Which,
Just
yeah,
to be clear.
it's already pervy.
I'm buying boxes of Purell for my Holo Suites.
I wouldn't let
that's
anybody else in my
disgusting.
Holo Suite. I mean, my wife, maybe my kid eventually, but probably
$5
not.
an hour.
It's so horrible.
$5 an hour.
No.
How cheap?
That's really cheap.
Yeah.
A buck a minute.
That's better.
$1 a minute. $60 an hour for VR.
And you just flip the breaker when they need to come
Yep.
out.
I wonder, it's interesting if you wonder if like Oculus or Valve or whoever or Sony will actually, presumably they will set up like, there'll be a thing in the mall where you can go and try this out, like a real world Holo Suite.
Back to the old PC bongs. What are they called? The cafes, internet cafes,
Yeah.
VR cafes.
Or
Holo Suites are coming back.
maybe they should just license Quark's Bar. Just set them up around the world. Malls everywhere. I think we've exhausted. Let's run down the other stuff. The Razer thing, like 2 years further behind than anything else we've seen. It's super rough and not worth talking about at this point. The Omni treadmill, better demo this year, but it was a much less functional demo and was like your foot movements, instead of actually tracking to foot movements, were just moving the controller stick forward, which was kind of lame, although it was a better demo than last year's, which was also super duper lame. Anything else you want to talk about from GDC? I played Butt Sniffing Pugs.
Oh, I was going to ask you what
That game was great.
butt sniffing.
It's not really a game.
Game was like.
They made a trackball out of an enormous tennis ball, like a novelty 16 or 18-inch tennis ball. And they made the trackball by putting a mouse upside down, putting the ball and some ball bearings in a big box. There were 2 buttons and a stuffed dog's ass, like not an actual taxidermy, but like a toy dog that just the ass was sticking out. So when it wasn't even really a game, it was just kind of experience. You walked the dogs around the park. You could press a button to pee on stuff. You could press a button to poop. You could press a button to eat grass. And there was another dog in the world, same controls. You would walk your dog over to that dog, sniff its butt, theoretically jam your face into the stuffed dog's butt. I didn't do that because of cleanliness. I just used my hand. It was a novel experience. I mean, it was in the experimental
Was there
controllers
actually
area.
any like smell sensation?
No smell-o-vision.
Oh, well, I thought there'd be like, that would have been
Missed
the whole point.
opportunity.
I also played a racing game where they had Xbox 360 wireless controllers on a big ass board, and 4 people were fighting against each other. You each had 2 knobs. One controlled the speed of the left vibrator in the Xbox 360. One controlled the speed of the right one, and you turn the knobs and you could control the controllers as they were vibrating around.
Sounds like Maker Faire, not GDC.
It was very Maker Faire. It was kind of like that old Simpsons episode where they were racing the old washer and dryer in Moe's Tavern. It was fun. And then the last thing was a game that was right up your alley. It was an Arduino thing, and basically it was like if you made Missile Command using a rotary phone as the controller, how would you do that? It was really neat. It was all fit into a briefcase. You looked into a little foam hood, and in the bottom of the hood there was one of those Arduinos on a circle with the LEDs around the outside edge, like the 12 clock LEDs. And when you dialed 1 on the rotary dial to ping, to scan the world, and then you had to line up the dial, like 3 lined up with the one at like 11 o'clock on the clock face, and you had to dial the right one to shoot a missile at the targets as they were coming in. And then it had a little thermal printer to print your score and interface stuff. It was really cool. It was they were experimental hardware games,
that's
basically.
cool.
It was a fun thing to walk around.
I forgot to ask you this when you were in the PAX segment. Did you get to play Overwatch at all? Because apparently that was a big hit at PAX.
No, I tried to get into Overwatch and they wouldn't let me because I did apparently tested we don't rate with Blizzard. So
I'm excited about that though. Overwatch.
it looks like TF2.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, I like TF2, so
I can't wait for that game.
yeah.
Is that this year?
Yeah. Blizzard. Also
Blizzard.
good at deadlines. On that note,
Wait. Game engines are free. That's kind of big news.
oh yeah, we talked about
yeah,
that last
that's
week.
true.
That was already it was on last week's
Done.
episode.
But Steam and not Steam.
Source 2.
So thank you. Source 2, Unreal Engine 4,
And Unity 5, which has been free for a while.
They've had a free version, but now the free version contains all the pro features.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all good.
There's still a few things in Unity that are that you have to pay for,
Yeah.
like source control for multiple like it's things that don't apply to small developers
Right.
but do apply to big giant teams, which seems right.
They used to eliminate certain graphics features and features of the engine, but now that's all included.
Yeah, I just downloaded the new Unreal Engine because it comes with the prototype build of the new Unreal Tournament, which I'm very
right.
excited to see come back. I used
Yeah,
to love Unreal Tournament back in the
me
day.
too.
We played that. So one of the things we didn't talk about last week at all, really, Norm, is the Steam controller and the Steam the streaming box, basically.
I did get to hold a Steam controller.
Did you play a game with it?
No, I just kind of who knows? But like, I feel like 50% of the battle is like the second it goes into your hand, you know if it's going to, to some extent, you know if it's going to work for you.
Yeah, like you knew the Duke was going to be a shitty experience for the Xbox One.
I actually didn't hate the Duke, but I know I'm in a minority there. But like the second I picked up like the new PlayStation 4 controller, I was like, it took me 2 seconds to know, yes, they got this right.
fits in my
This is
hand.
so much better
Yeah.
than all the PlayStation controllers before it.
And
And Steam controller?
yeah,
Nope.
It's familiar but different, and I think yes, but obviously the big untested thing is how well the big innovation, the circle pads.
Yeah.
I didn't get to try those.
Norm and I played 30 seconds of games with the Steam controller each in a room while Gabe was talking to us, and like we're just gonna have to play games with him. That's all there is.
So
to
you
it.
don't. The jury is still out.
Like, I mean, the game that we played Unreal Tournament, and you could like 1-to-1 movement on. So the way you controlled in that game was you used the left stick as movement, just like you would with an Xbox 360 pad.
Right.
And then the right stick was mapped like 1-to-1 movement, like you would a mouse, and you could do the same thing by lifting up your thumb and moving it over and all that stuff.
Makes sense.
It seemed pretty good. I picked it up relatively fast. I feel like I was nowhere near the competency level I would have with a mouse and keyboard now, but I have to say I love, like, the thing I love about playing games, even first-person shooters with a stick, with an Xbox controller, PS4 controller, is having analog movement, so you can go slow or go fast, and you don't have to fool with the run modifier keys and stuff like that. I feel like that's a much better, especially for games that need any kind of stealth at all. But I don't. Like I've played games with trackballs before, and my thumb, it fucks up your thumb lifting up and moving back and forth really quickly over a long period of time.
This is the thing, though, that
we'll see.
I most hope they can figure out work, because the living room PC thing, I've tried it so many times, it's never worked. I've had the PC up in my living room hooked up to the TV, never found a mouse keyboard solution.
Well, you
that
have
works.
wired internet now, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is why I want this to work, but that doesn't solve the mouse keyboard problem. For a lot of games that you want to play, like obviously gamepad, a lot of PC games these days that will just work with the 360 or PS4 gamepad. Brilliant.
So about
I'm fine with that.
ergonomics, not wiring.
Yeah,
But for mouse and keyboard, it doesn't. Like, I really want this solution. So if I can keep my PC down in my office where I want it, but I can stream the games upstairs to my big TV and play them on a Steam controller. If this actually fixes that, that's like a real problem. That's a thing that I would like to work finally.
Here's the with the Link, which is basically a little tiny $50 box.
Steam Link.
You can hook up a Steam controller. You can hook up competitive controllers, which to me says Xbox 360 wireless dongle, which are suddenly going to get real fucking expensive, or hopefully a PS4, Xbox One controller, and then have gamepad for gamepad games, Steam controller for games that need Steam controller, and have a competitive experience for all. They didn't address voice stuff. Like, I don't know how voice streaming works in that situation, so that means multiplayer games may be out. I'm kind of okay with that. I've been playing with a
Really?
Well, I forgot to ask.
Does the Steam controller not have a mic jack?
It didn't seem to have a mic jack on the one that they
I'm not
showed
gonna
us.
say whether it has or not. The
I
Xbox
looked.
One, a wireless dongle will come out soon as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a dongle.
Oh, I didn't
for
know
the
that. I
Xbox
missed
One.
that. That's good. And the PS4, you can just use Bluetooth. So if the device supports Bluetooth, if the Link supports Bluetooth, theoretically, you should just be able to pair it and it'll work. I'm super interested in that product. That is a thing that I've wanted for a very long time.
That's
Yes.
a no-brainer. $50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you avoid a lot of the mouse and keyboard problems because that device will be designed to work with a controller from the get-go.
Right,
Which
and
is
that's
the
what
key.
I want. I want to be able to play. I want to be able to play my PC games, but I don't always want to have to, go and
Have
sit
a
in my.
shitty wireless keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we ready to talk about Apple?
Sure.
We're only an hour and a half in, guys. This is going to be a long damn podcast.
I'm gonna get some more coffee.
It's a big news week.
In the interest of going quickly, there was a bunch of stuff at the beginning before we got to the new MacBook. I'm going to highlight that real quick and just go over it. Apple TV is now $70. It's exact same hardware, which I think means it's an iPhone 4 inside. Is that right, Norm? Do you remember? It's an iPhone 4 or 4S. It's like an A4 processor, I think. It's $70 now. Everything else is the same. HBO Now, which is a huge deal, means you can get HBO without having to pay Comcast or Charter or TWC or cable
That's
company.
the thing that is going to get a lot of people, including myself, I think, to finally stop paying a cable bill.
Yeah, fuck Comcast, man. All I want is HBO and like 3 other channels and all the other stuff I can get on
barrier.
iTunes. $15 a month. It'll be available in early April.
Now
Apple TV is the launch partner, and presumably you'll come to other places that have HBO Go soon.
Well, so you
3
will
months.
you will be able. You can also get HBO now, like on your desktop, piece,
Yes.
just through the web. But that's not obviously not.
Nobody
what people
wants
want. But yeah, I don't know how. So Apple doesn't have it locked up like indefinitely.
3-month exclusive.
That's
Yeah.
all it is.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
so
what-
This month is free for
HBO Now will eventually be on Xbox One and everything, basically. Amazon and Kindle box.
and it's a separate
all this
app
stuff.
than HBO Go.
Right.
Could not be more excited about this.
Yeah. Now, does like
It'll be time to go with Game of Thrones. Sorry, that was it.
well, so my question is, if I want to watch Game of Thrones on HBO Now, can I get it at the exact same time as the broadcast?
Well, so the question is, with HBO Go,
the
it's
title
shit and
HBO
died.
Now would seem to suggest that I don't have to wait.
Well, that's
to
the way it
watch
worked with
this
HBO Go. HBO Go, as soon as it was up on the East Coast, you could watch it on HBO
Right,
Go,
right.
assuming HBO Go would hold.
This is the thing. One good thing about the old-fashioned cable is the shit worked. Right? I never had a problem with like, oh my god, the HBO servers are going down because so many people want to watch Game of Thrones.
And
on
that
cable.
happened every week.
A lot of
last
people
year.
that watched the big hit shows like Game of Thrones on HBO and True Detective. This happened as well.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to watch it on HBO Go, the servers shit the bed and people were unhappy.
As somebody who watched True Detective exclusively on HBO Go, it was always bad on Sunday night. It was always fine by Monday night.
Right. So if you don't mind waiting a day,
And the bit rate that you got with HBO Go looked much better than it did on Comcast.
the problem is when you
Really?
yeah.
The problem is though when you're dealing with these zeitgeisty shows, you can't, and we live in a social media age, you can't afford to wait 24 hours.
Here's the thing,
because
though.
the shit can get spoiled.
The thing is, you can start watching at 5 p.m. if it's an 8 o'clock show and you live on the West Coast. So you can be ahead of the zeitgeist for the West Coast.
Yeah, but what about if everyone else is doing that and the servers aren't? The
If I'm
last thing
paying
you want to do
$15
is
a
like,
month, I want 4 nines uptime from those.
the last thing
fuckers.
you want to do is like settle down for a show that's like appointment viewing, like Game of Thrones, like people look forward to it all week. Sit down with your popcorn, turn the phone off, sit down, and the fucking wheel starts spinning, buffering. That's the last thing you want to happen. It's
true. That's
it
true.
has to. They can't have that shit happen.
Now, I'll tell you this, though. House of Cards, for example, which launched simultaneously on Netflix, but not everyone watches at the same time. Appointment television, I think, matters a little bit less. It's more about the appointment for your household and your group.
Right.
As long as everyone's coming at the same time, it doesn't need to be exactly at 8 o'clock. You can determine that time and wait 15 minutes and start it. As long as that experience then.
I am going to
from
take
then on.
I use cable TV so little these days. I think I'm going to have a look at the bill and think, is it really worth keeping around? Because 99%, I would say, maybe not that much, probably somewhere between 90-95% of what's on the screen and out at our house is not actual television.
It's Netflix
or
and
Amazon
Amazon,
or HBO Go or something, one of these a la carte
Plex for
services.
us.
And Sling launched last month. They have 100,000 subscribers now.
Have you
who's
canceled
this?
yours yet, Norm?
I've canceled mine already.
Yeah.
Dish TV's Dish Network Sling thing, which
okay.
has TBS, AMC is part of that.
How was the cancellation for that? I have to do that still.
You just go online and
You have to go to the website?
Very simple.
Because
Okay.
even for the shows you necessarily can't get through these services, like let's say The Walking Dead is a show that I want to watch every week. That's not, unless I have cable, there's no way to get that on a streaming service. But I'll just buy
Yeah, you
this.
can.
Like who?
You can get on. You can get on iTunes. You pay.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I would just buy the season passes for the 4 or 5 shows on iTunes that I know I'm going to want, and I'm probably still saving money.
No commercials too.
Yeah, no commercials.
Also, but we don't know if something for HBO Now, for example. We don't know if that's going to bundle an HBO Go subscription. Like,
Right.
if I can watch an Apple TV with my login, does that also entitle me to be able to watch on the iPad?
But right now I'm paying quite a lot of money for Comcast cable TV, and it's 400 channels of shit I don't watch.
It's true.
I don't watch sports 99% of the time. I do like to watch Super Bowl. Just go to someone else's house.
Right. I mean, it is, especially with the amount of free time that you and I are in the same boat on free time,
Yeah.
right? I work all day and then kid stuff until a certain kid goes to bed, and then
Yeah.
you have like 2 hours before you fall unconscious. Like,
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think it's time. I think it's time to get HBO Now and shut down. I got to call Comcast and say, how much is it to just the internet service and just have them take the cable boxes away?
Now, see, that's what we do. We haven't had cable in like 7 years.
I think it's time.
But
it's a waste of money.
It's not that much more money for cable. That's the thing. The internet.
Well, that's why I want to do the math. I want to figure out what
internet
I'm paying
alone
for.
is like $5 or $10 less.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. So you're still going to be paying quite a bit if you have Comcast.
It depends on which internet you have and all
Yeah,
that.
we have a 100.
Well, I'm gonna do the math and
You
look
live
into
in
it.
San Francisco, so you might be able to get a Sound or Monkey Brains or one of the high-speed guys.
Someone was telling me, was it Monkey Brains? I think Veronica was looking
Monkey
into
Brains
Monkey
is great.
Brains, which is like super duper duper high speed.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it.
A Sound is what they have. Monkey Brains is the wireless from. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, Apple TV, HBO Now, early April, $15 a month. It'll be live by the time Game of Thrones starts. You don't need cable to get it. 3-month exclusivity window for Apple TV, and then presumably it'll roll out to Xbox and PlayStation, Roku, and all the other places that you expect to have HBO. HBO Go. iPhone. They announced that they have 700 million iPhones sold. The only thing really that they announced is that iOS 8.2 is out already now. If you're listening to this, the big change in iOS 8.2 that I can tell, the only thing that I can see that's different is that there's an Apple Watch app. We'll talk about that in a minute. And they announced Research Kit, which is a big data collection drive for research.
That's actually a big deal.
It's potentially a big deal. There's big questions about whether how much of that the FDA is going to allow. They've regulated, for example, 23andMe pretty heavily. So like the armchair analysis I saw from people who are science writers who covered the 23andMe stuff well is that a lot of the data collection stuff, like the survey type stuff, is probably completely okay according to the FDA.
Or like the biomonitoring stuff, maybe not so
Maybe
much?
even the biomonitoring is okay. The thing where you tap or say to tell if you have Parkinson's is probably not so much.
Right.
So it's the complaint.
But it's it's a good direction. It's a good thing to be trying to do.
The ability to go from collecting data by sticking flyers on telephone poles and having people tear off things that say call this number and get $100 for your survey.
Yeah.
And getting 100 respondents.
Yeah.
And being able to put an app out on the App Store that iTunes that they're gonna promote and get 100,000 respondents to your survey is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it's terrific.
I thought
I would sign up for all of that stuff.
have you? It's out right now.
Well,
you could do it already.
I'm going to then.
Okay. We'll check back in a few weeks.
Okay.
I thought that the whole do your part thing was maybe a little creepy.
I didn't see that part.
Yeah, they said they're not keeping any of the data, which is the right answer, basically. That whether you trust Apple to not keep your data is on you. New MacBook. This is big.
I was very excited about this. Very excited indeed.
There was a leak a few months ago about this design for a new MacBook. Back then, we didn't know what this would be called or how it would fit in the lineup. But an ultra thin, MacBook with what looks like a pretty big screen, 12-inch screen is what the leak said, with a single data port.
USB-C.
USB-C. And that's what was announced.
And that's, I think when we saw that leak, we all assumed that was going to be the new Air.
That's
Yes.
right.
So it's in fact not right.
More surprising, it was less surprising that this product was announced than the fact that it now sits alongside, almost in between, the MacBook Air, which is now on the pricing scale, at least on the low end, and the MacBook Pro. So
They have basically brought back the MacBook.
But if you think about the
MacBook was the cheap one before.
The MacBook was the cheap one.
So that's the thing. Well, in the same way that Miller High Life used to be the high-end Miller beer offering, and is now considered the bottom of the barrel.
It is the champagne of beers, Gary.
Well, but the
Fuck
reason,
you in the bottom of the barrel. Miller High
the
Life is
reason
good
why
beer.
Miller High Life says the champagne of beers is because Miller originally marketed it as their premium offering.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's been reshuffled and has become kind of the junk.
How would you rate Miller's? Is it MGD, then Miller Lite, then High Life?
Well, when I used to, so MGD is now the premier offering.
I think I disagree, sir.
Well, I don't drink beer anymore.
That's
but when
probably best.
But but if I'm not kind of like the word, like the shitty version of the most interesting man in the world. I don't drink beer, but if I did, I would drink Miller High Life.
Oh. Ugh. Gross.
Back before when there was a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro line, MacBook was like the student lineup. This is the white and black MacBook. It was
I
kind
remember
of the
those.
thicker one, plastic one. It started at $100.
It was the entry level
or
MacBook.
$1,000. Over time, MacBook Air, the entry level MacBook Air 11-inch, took that role.
Well, you remember that when the first MacBook Air came in, it was super expensive.
Yes,
It was an executive laptop, basically.
Yeah, the Martha Stewart laptop.
Yeah.
And this is kind of launching in that same position, being expensive relative to the Air, launching at $1,300 all the way to $1,600, and being thinner and having a better screen even, but
The parallel to the original one is there.
it absolutely not taking the Air.
It's interesting though, the way that the MacBook line has now been completely reshuffled. The MacBook Air, when it first came in, was a premium product. Now the MacBook Air is actually the entry level MacBook.
Should we explain what this is?
Yes.
It's a 2 pound Mac. It's 13.1 millimeters at its thickest part compared to the Air, the 11-inch Air, which is in front of Norm.
So 24% thinner than the MacBook Air.
Doesn't
which is
matter.
Nuts.
Can you show me? Hold up your fingers and show me what 4.4 millimeters looks like.
Well, I think the point is noticeably thinner.
It is noticeably thinner.
Have you seen it in person?
No, but they've shown a comparison. It's pretty amazing.
I don't.
And only 2 pounds.
Anytime.
And you know
anytime.
what? Well, here's one thing that's actually true about the MacBook, about Apple products, is that every time they say, "Oh, this thing's super thin and super light," you go, "Yeah, whatever." Generally, when you actually see it and pick it up, it's actually more impressive than
Yeah.
the claim that they made.
Well,
Hey,
well,
oh
well,
wow,
well,
that's
hold on.
super thin.
Anytime Phil Schiller stands on a stage and uses the word 4.7 millimeters thin to describe something instead of using thick, it means that there's some horse shit coming out. Right?
Every time.
Every single time.
So every single time.
Let's get
what people
rest
have
of the
said.
specs.
Sure. The rest of the specs is that it runs Intel's Core M processor.
Right.
It's Broadwell Y, not Broadwell U, which is ultra low voltage, which allows for this form factor. Also allows for a fanless design. So one of the ways they achieve this chassis is new battery technology. They stagger the batteries, so they maximize all the volume with batteries as opposed to being these plates that previous MacBooks have had of batteries. They also kind of change the keyboard design. So the keyboards now use these butterfly hinges as opposed to what's the old
scissor design.
The scissor design
Yeah.
for the keys. The screen is 12 inches, although less bezel. It's not a touchscreen, but it is a high resolution. Kind of awkward resolution. What is it, Jeremy?
It's 2304 by 1440.
Yes.
It's the keyboard thing is worth talking about, though. Oh, and they also changed the trackpad, which we'll talk about more in a minute too.
The keyboard I'm most nervous about.
We've used a lot of small throw keyboards. I would consider the current MacBook Air keyboard to be the shortest throw that I've been comfortable with. The one on the 13-inch Retina that came out last year is people complain about that fairly regularly.
Wait, have they said there's actually less travel in the new keyboard?
It is.
Oh yeah, it's a whole part of the
40% thinner.
There's a wonderful little demonstration where they do a slow motion video of somebody typing on an old Mac keyboard.
Okay.
And the keys are all wobbly. And on the new one, they go down
Yes.
perfectly straight.
Right.
So
It's one of those things you just won't know until you try it.
That's the thing, is you're not going to know until you sit down and use it. The trackpad has a similar issue. The trackpad doesn't have movement anymore. It can detect
clicks.
differences in pressure, but it doesn't. Like if you look at my trackpad, you push the bottom edge and it actually moves. I'm very interested to see how that works in practice.
So there's no click anymore.
no, you
physical
just push
click.
harder to click.
Okay.
and
But you can already set up your current trackpad to do that. You can have it respond to just a touch.
That's
You
right.
can just a tap, but not a difference. It doesn't just tap. There's no difference between tapping and pushing hard with one finger.
Right.
So
and
to
they
do a-
showed applications where pushing harder on the trackpad, there are software applications for that.
The one thing I really like is that the trackpad on this laptop is enormous. It looks
Yes, it's big.
literally bigger than Jesus. It's
Everything
huge.
looks well.
It's
Everything looks like it goes
it's like
all the
6
way.
by 6 inches or something.
Everything looks like it goes all the way to the edge. The keys go pretty much all the way to the edge. The trackpad goes all the way to its edges.
screen doesn't, but the screen definitely has less bezel.
No, but they finally got rid of this
silver.
MacBook Air silver screen.
Well, the Retinas have always had black edges.
Yes.
It's always glass edge. to
right.
edge.
So I'm glad that they have that now.
Here's a really interesting thing. Under 2 pounds at the size, because it is a bigger footprint than the 11-inch MacBook Air at a little over 2 pounds. That's the weight distribution when it's open makes it feel psychologically even lighter from the people who've held it so far. Also, at under 2 pounds, it means that it could even fit in that iPad category on airplanes, so you don't need to put it underneath your seat.
I will say this
takeoff.
is. I mean, there are still obviously there are questions still to be answered, like how do the keys feel, blah blah, how do certain things work. But on
How's performance with
Yes,
this new processor
but
in macOS?
just looking at it at the moment and the things that this is the dream MacBook that I've wanted for a very long time.
So let's ruin your dreams now, Gary.
You need a accessory.
Well, no.
Well, we know-
First
I
off,
know about that.
First off, the Core M performance is shitty. You tested that Lenovo Yoga last year and were really disappointed, as I recall.
Well, for things like video editing and Lightroom
photo editing.
photo exports,
Yeah.
and video editing, which is something I would want to do on my primary computer.
On your $1,600
On-
laptop.
But now
Exactly.
you tweeted that, and was it Nathan? Somebody responded to
Yeah,
you
so
saying
Andrew
that
Cunningham or actually Nathan, who has tested both multiple laptops using that processor, said that it could be it's a heat thing. So one of the reasons the Lenovo Yoga Pro 3, which has a high resolution screen than this one. One of the reasons it slowed down over time was because of heat management. The firmware clocks down as it gets to a thermal threshold. This is something that Apple could have addressed in their design, so we don't know that yet. We also don't know what performance is like on macOS versus Windows.
That's
on
true.
this very similar hardware. They could be cutting processes more efficiently in the background to prevent reaching that thermal threshold.
If judging by my experience with Chrome on my MacBook Air and the fact that the fan spins up if I open too many tabs, I assume that if you buy this laptop, you're probably a Safari user unless they fix Chrome.
The thing is, if you are, the reason why this doesn't yet kill my dreams is because I don't do this kind of high-end applications. If you're in the business of Lightroom video editing, you should probably just buy a MacBook Pro.
This is why it's the executive's laptop.
Right.
It's a
It's for
high
people who
price
don't really do anything.
executive laptop.
What's that?
It's for people who don't really do
we
anything.
will know.
Yeah, that's
when
me. I don't really do anything, so it's the perfect laptop.
It's just
for me.
words. Text editor.
It's the whatever the opposite.
Notepad.
Whatever the opposite of productivity is, that's what I do.
Okay.
And this is the perfect
Consumption.
laptop for me. Yes.
So-
Nice stuff.
Is this slower than the Air?
It is
Yes.
slower than the new Air. So both the Air and the Pros got updated with the new Broadwell U processors. Both the dual-core ones. The 15-inch Pro didn't, because that will have quad-core later this year. The MacBook Pro Retina's 13-inch also has the new Force Touchpad, Force Trackpad.
The Pro Retina, not
Pro
the Pro.
Retina.
Because they still sell a Pro that's not Retina.
Really?
Yeah, I
they
couldn't
do.
believe
It's just
that.
kind of sitting
Oh.
there. Yeah, they do.
So I ordered one of the Pro Retinas, the 13-inch Pro Retinas, to replace my Sandy Bridge machine.
How
here.
much of a bump did these get? The new Pros?
So the Haswell is more about battery life than performance. Probably the graphics cores are going to be better, so the integrated graphics is better on the 13-inch Pro.
Battery life is such a crucial thing.
And battery life goes from 9 to 10 hours according to Apple's metrics, which is probably,
I would almost always rather have a battery bump than a performance bump.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're maintaining performance with the previous gen. Anyway, the big thing that most people are complaining about is that there's only one port on this
and you
this
have to buy an
laptop.
$80 dongle if you want to use anything else.
If you're in the market for a $1,500 laptop,
Wait, it doesn't come with the dongle?
fuck no, of course it's
no.
Apple.
Only comes with power?
There's
Power.
one, so that one
Wow.
port feeds everything, right? But
Yep.
if you want to have it, bear in mind, you can always pull out the power cord
It has 10 hours of battery life.
and
You should be fine.
plug something else into
What
it.
about but it's USB 3. You can't plug your existing USB.
USB-C.
USB-C.
Type-C. You can't put in your existing USB.
No,
other
you
types
would have
in
to
there.
buy USB-C drives, but you buy an $80 dongle and it comes with, because
what
I've
does it
done my
come with?
homework here.
Ha.
Yeah.
So it comes with a standard USB port.
Yeah.
Which
One?
obviously anything.
One.
Yes.
It's 3.1 though. So you can plug a hub in
So
and
it's a
it'll be
hub
powered.
into a dongle?
A power pass through, right?
Yep.
And either HDMI or
VGA.
VGA
Yeah.
for video out.
You can also get a USB-C to USB 3 dongle for only $20. So if you want to plug in USB 3 stuff, you can do that. Now here's the fucked thing. There's no headphone jack.
Yeah, there is.
there is.
On the other side.
On the other side.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's 2 ports.
Is a headphone jack.
There's a headphone jack.
Fuck those guys.
Do
Okay,
your,
you're
do
totally
your
in.
homework before you start mouthing off, Will.
I was trying to get images to load on an
You
airplane
gotta have a
yesterday.
headphone jack.
I would have. I was getting ready to be really righteously indignant.
No, of course it's a headphone jack.
Are you sure?
I wouldn't have put it
Yes.
past Apple to
Yes,
include,
for sure.
I wouldn't have put it past them to include it in that dongle and say if you want headphones.
That's what I was expecting.
But
No,
the whole point of this sort of thing is like it's thin, it's beautiful, it's elegant, there's so much space. The last thing you want is some like fucking octopus thing
Yeah.
sticking out the side.
You're gonna have a chain. You're gonna have
Yes.
a USB 3 to
And a
the
hub.
$80 hub, or to the $80 adapter, then from the adapter to your USB.
Most of the
hub.
most of the time, though, I'm not. Again, it's different cases for everyone. But most of the time, I don't need to have anything else plugged into it.
You're going to want to charge your phone at some point. You're only going to have your laptop.
Yeah, but I won't charge it off of. Yeah, that's true. And then I'm going to have to use the dongle.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you?
About the headphone jack?
Actually, I just got to it. I was stalling. So it has Bluetooth 4 and 802.11 AC. I have to say, these days with a good AC router and an AC laptop and devices, AC is stupid fast. Like
Should
AC is
I
really
update
good.
my N to an AC router at home?
All right, are you using a real router or using an Airport Express?
I'm using a time capsule,
I would not.
which is N,
See, that's the.
and I
that's-
would update it to a time capsule AC.
At this point, I would wait.
And
Okay.
you are wired for Ethernet at home.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's still nice when you've got your laptop or your iPhone
But
or
do you
your iPad in
transfer
the
big
living room to
files?
have the super fast.
But if you're not like moving video files as an executive,
Yes.
you don't move files large enough for this to be an issue.
No, but I like to stream video.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
And it's faster than your internet connection.
Okay, then
So
I
you're
don't-
cool.
Then I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
Now I need to find the best portable USB.
Tell me some
3
more
hub.
reasons. Shit on this new MacBook some more. Come on.
It comes in
Keep
gold,
going.
silver, and space gray.
I'm getting the space gray, and so is Norm.
Really? You're getting the space gray?
Yeah.
I would.
I think Norm should get gold.
I'm not getting gold.
Are you getting it for the site or for you?
I'm getting it for the site.
You should get gold.
Did you get a gold phone?
You should get gold.
Fuck no, I couldn't get a
You
gold
should
phone.
get
I
gold.
totally would have if they had them in stock.
The thing I like about the space gray is because we all- people us
You
people
like it to
us-
scratch up?
Well, us Apple types who like to. What are you looking at?
I was just looking to see how scratched your space
Well,
gray was.
I have a case on it, so zero scratched
Okay,
up.
that's good.
If you're one of those people, like every Apple user, whether they admit it or not, they all have that dark part of them where they like to show off the fact that they have shiny
Some new
things.
shit?
So space gray is a new way to do that because it doesn't look.
It's true.
At first glance, you could just see a silver laptop and go, "Oh, you have a laptop. You have a Mac. Okay."
It doesn't light up.
That doesn't
Wait,
light
what?
up.
It doesn't light up.
That's
it's
good.
just shiny.
I
in the
don't
back.
need that. I would rather turn that off and save the battery life anyway.
It's just the
it does- it
backlight for the
doesn't-
screen. It
yeah.
doesn't.
It doesn't
To
cost
turn
extra
that off,
battery.
you'd have to turn off your
Oh,
backlight.
okay. I don't care about that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't care about that.
You know what?
Look here, Gary. I'm going to
But space
simulate it for
gray
you.
is a nice way to be able to say.
That's what it's going to look like right there.
It's just shiny
It's just going to be a
glass.
sticker.
I'm fine with it. That will show up better against the space gray, though.
That's probably
So
true.
you don't need it. The contrast is created. So it's a nice way to say, "Hey, look at me. I have a new thing."
Oh my God.
But without
Jesus Christ.
having it in gold, which basically just makes you a twat.
If you'd like to give some feedback to Gary Whitta about his theories on showing off your new MacBook, his Twitter handle is @GaryWhitta. with
Plus,
two
I feel like if I had a gold laptop, I'd feel obliged to be writing great stuff all the time. And I just it's not going to happen.
Would you get it? Would you make it like a chalice? Would you put some bling around the edges if you got the gold laptop?
No,
Get
because I
some
think
stick-on-
gold is blingy
think
enough.
that's
I'm not going
enough?
to bedazzle it.
Did you get a sticker that says "Baller Time" or something like that?
I might get a sticker that says "Baller Time." That's pretty good.
Okay.
Hey, if you have a Windows, you should have one that says "Balmer Time," and you could do that on your Windows laptop.
You'd have to be really into the LA Clippers now for that to be
Oh, that's true,
applicable.
yeah.
It's $1,300 for the base model.
Yes.
256 gigabytes storage, which is fine, I think, for that price and that laptop.
Yep.
It's $1,600 for a ever so slightly faster, like 100 megahertz faster CPU
And
with 512
double-
gigs of
yes,
storage, which is probably an expensive but okay upgrade.
No,
Yes.
that's a ripoff.
Oh, I mean,
Where are you getting ripped up? There on the RAM.
well, the CPU
the
is
RAM
no
is the same.
faster.
It's 8 gigs.
No,
on both
sorry.
models.
I mean the storage.
Storage.
I think the
SSD.
storage, $300 for 256 gigs of storage.
That's a $50 markup, basically, because it's a buck a gig right now. If you buy an SSD for your
And is there
computer.
any option to get in there and
It's 75 cents a gig.
is there any option to get in there and tailor it further?
No,
Like
you
customize
can't
it?
do shit.
The two stock models.
Two stocks.
Okay. Well,
Seems
I'm
like-
getting the space
don't know if that
gray
is
in the souped up version.
I think you're crazy. You should get the MacBook Pro. It's the same price.
But,
That's the thing.
But I don't need the power. I value the
They're so light. Although even the
But
Pros.
I'm telling you, okay. So I have a MacBook Air in the house.
Yeah, I know.
My wife has a MacBook Pro. I carry on my MacBook Air around all the time. When I ask my wife, when my wife asked me to handle the MacBook Pro, it feels like a fucking brick. It feels so heavy compared to what I'm used to.
Here's my recommendation for anybody that thinks they're going to go buy one of these, because they go available for pre-order on the 10th, right?
On sale the 10th.
On sale the 10th.
Yep.
If you think, because of the problems with this processor that we've seen in other laptops, and the fact that they're going with a fanless design, I'm really concerned that this machine is going to be great until the moment you actually spin up the CPU and it starts to heat up and then it clocks down, and then it's going to be essentially like a netbook from 2007.
So my question, absolutely is still my fear.
Yeah.
The question is, would Apple release that product?
Well, they've released duds in the past. The first MacBook Air was an absolute piece of shit. Not the first MacBook Air with this body design, the one before that, the other one with one port. That was a USB
Right,
2
and,
port
and to be
and a
fair,
headphone
this
jack.
is.
I have one of those.
And to be
It's
fair,
bad.
this is now a first generation product. This is a new classification of Mac they haven't made before.
Right, it's
It
a
is this
weird screen.
It's kind of an Air. It's
The
but
keyboard,
It's not an Air.
Gary, what's the primary use that you use your computer for? Like typing mostly, would you say?
Yeah, email, web browsing, writing,
Yeah.
fairly low load.
So if the keyboard sucks?
That's why I'm not concerned.
But if the
I'm not
keyboard
concerned
sucks,
about
fair
performance.
enough. But if the keyboard sucks,
If I don't like the feel of the keyboard, that's a problem.
right? What if do you use Chrome or Safari?
Safari.
Okay, you're okay on that then.
The other thing to note is that given that this is a big category announcement and they're committed to this and they've made a bigger trackpad and have done what they claim to be innovations there, it really seems like we're not going to get a touchscreen Mac this year.
I can't imagine. I think that they did this new forced touchpad instead of a touchscreen Mac, and I literally don't understand.
And there we go. That's going to be really the line is drawn between OSs on Windows 10, and whatever new version of Mac comes out this year. Touchscreen and no touchscreen.
The keyboard is definitely a bit of an unknowable. But if you look at what does Gary want in a MacBook, I want it super light, like Air Light. And I want a Retina screen. And this is both of those things.
So the thing that's really exciting to me about this is it solves the problem I have with the 13-inch. And actually, I think we should put the Air in the don't buy under any circumstances category at this point. Maybe the $990 or the $899 11-inch.
Yeah, that's.
But it's the only bargain. It's the entry level price.
But
option.
the 13-inch Air, you should just go straight to a Retina Pro if you're going to buy a 13-inch Air.
I still have my main my non-desktop computer is an 11-inch Air, and I love it. It's pound for pound. It's a fantastic computer.
Right. So what I'm saying is, I think the 11-inch Air is safe.
Okay.
I think the 13-inch Air is a do not buy under any circumstances because it still has the shitty low resolution screen that I'm stuck with right now.
Yeah.
I used Joey's 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro while we were in Boston a little bit, and I immediately thought, oh, right, okay.
If you're looking at the 13-inch Air, you should probably be looking at
Pay a couple $100
have to see
more
the
for the Pro.
benchmarks. Either get the new MacBook or get the 13-inch Pro.
I think I would say let's wait for reviews to buy the MacBook, the 12-inch MacBook.
So weird to think about the MacBook Air as now the entry level, the quote unquote budget.
Well, but
I'm telling you, it's the Miller High Life of Macs.
It's the entry level, but it's going to outperform that way more expensive 12-inch MacBook.
But part of the reason why it's doing that is because it's driving a much lower resolution display.
And I will go back to when the rumors came out originally about this laptop. Apple does not need to make a netbook, and they didn't.
No, they have them. That's what the iPad Mini is.
Well,
that's what we said.
Yeah, we said the same thing 3 months ago.
Some people this was never going to be a low price computer.
It was pointed out that it was significant. It was kind of conspicuous by its absence that the iPad was not mentioned at all.
So the thing I am interested in is that, I think I don't have a problem with the one port future for laptops. I think at the price points that they're selling this, at least for the high end version, maybe not for the $1,300 base model, they should eat the bullet and put the $79 dongle in, because this laptop is almost but not quite useless without it.
It would have been nice to. I think throwing the dongle in, but that's where. But they're not going to do this.
Hey Gary, just give me $80 right now. I'll get you a dongle.
One of Apple's highest margin categories, right?
The dongle?
Cases and the dongles and the little things that they charge you
make a lot of money
for.
Dongles.
But this is a necessity. It shouldn't be an accessory.
Right.
I mean,
no.
Even the original iPhone shipped with a dock, right? Didn't it?
Here's the thing. Without the
little plastic guy.
Most accessories you buy are things that add a little bit of extra, things that are nice to have. But the truth is, out of the box, without that dongle, that computer is not fully functional.
You can't plug in a thumb drive or an SD card reader.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, not even an SD card.
Right, because they don't make.
You can't plug in your camera to pull pictures off of the phone.
Hold on, because the dongle doesn't even include an SD card.
That's why you need the chain. You need the chain of the dongle.
Chain.
Oh, and then you'd have to chain in a USB SD card reader into that.
USB, HDMI, SD.
You know what? My wife was thinking about getting one of these new Macs. Once she knows that about the SD card reader, she's not going to care. She's not going to want it.
Right, it's a shit show. That is a mistake, I think, because that's the reason I got a 13-inch MacBook Air instead of the 11-inch MacBook Air. Is because I wanted the SD card reader on the side.
It's all part of the continuing Apple philosophy, which is they care so much about form factor and weight and thinness that they keep taking things out. Like they killed the optical drive. There are all kinds of things. Every time they make the Mac thinner, there are things that they make it harder and harder to do. Which again, for filthy casuals like me that just want basic functionality, it's fine. But for people like you who are a bit more pro, again,
they make that for you.
They make that product, and it's actually called the MacBook Pro, which is how you know it's for you. They make this shit easy.
Here's the thing
to figure out.
In 5 years, the performance thing won't be an issue because the processors will be using a much smaller process, and Apple has shown that they build designs to last for a very long time now. So this is, like it or not, this is the future of the Mac. In 5 years, you won't care that there's only a USB-C port because everything will be USB-C, and you'll just plug your HDMI cable, your USB-C into the monitor, and then the monitor will take care of the rest.
USB-C is presumably going to become a ubiquitous thing, right?
It is literally. Well, the USB-C stuff gives you the same kind of bandwidth that you get out of Thunderbolt in the incarnation that Intel is pushing.
Now,
so you should be able to plug in a monitor, get the display, and have the USB ports on the monitor all be live at the same time.
This is a small thing.
Whether that happens or not,
this is a small thing, but it's worth mentioning. It occurred to me, especially when you've got kids. When you go to USB-C, does the MagSafe part of this go away?
There's no MagSafe on
Right.
this.
So that's a bummer because I like MagSafe.
Well, this will just pull out. It feels very similar to Lightning, but it's a female end that goes into the male end.
Okay, but MagSafe detaches like really easily.
Too easily,
Which actually sometimes is because I get it. Like you don't kick your computer off the coffee table anymore, but every time I pick it up, MagSafe falls out.
The thin one, I can't. I have to put the MagSafe on when it's on the floor or on the desk where it's going to charge.
Are we going to see benchmarks? Typically, do you see benchmarks and reviews before the product's available?
Presumably, the people who review Macs, like Macworld and Jason Snell and those people, are going to get seated release units before they come out, but I don't know.
Right.
I absolutely,
it would be nice to see some decent numbers before you put the order in.
Yeah, I absolutely wouldn't buy one of these until I see people who know how to review laptops review this.
Right.
I mean, Norm's going to order one as soon as we can get one as soon as we can get it. The other thing that changes
get the gold one. You might as well, right? If it's for tested.
Baller time.
I want to get the one that I would actually consider using.
That is a good way to test devices, just to be clear.
Would you feel like if Apple said to you, "We will give you a free new MacBook, just completely free for you, just to have, but it's the only ones we'll give you is gold,"
and
would you rather not have it?
No, of course we'll take it early to review.
No, not to review. Like they just want to give it to you as a personal.
I wouldn't take it.
Like, okay, what if I, for your birthday or Christmas or whatever, gave you a gift and it was a gold one?
Is this a hypothetical, Gary, or a real thing?
Well, yeah, because I'm obviously not going to do this.
Okay.
But if I were to buy you a nice gift,
you said the only way I couldn't exchange it.
For whatever reason, it's a gold one. Would you be like,
I want to get you something really nice, but I want to make it shitty for you in some important way?
Yeah. Like the question is, like,
that happens all the time.
Would you? I mean,
that happens to me all the time.
Because the thing is,
I still
for example,
if someone said I want to buy you this lens and it's not exactly the one I want.
Wow.
Such a hard life.
Wow.
All these people want to buy you expensive gifts, but they're not exactly the way you want it.
Not exactly the way I want it.
You're like those kids at Christmas that they make those tumblers out of, like, oh, my stupid dad, he got me an iPhone, but it wasn't
I got
gold.
the iPhone 5C.
I hate him. He's the worst dad in the world. I wish he would die.
Gary, I would put a skin over it. I would put
It's only 64 gigs.
Oh my god! I put skin over the MacBook.
Well, that's the thing. So, like, you would, like, I literally couldn't. Like, if I had a gold MacBook, I'd have to have a.
You couldn't go to meetings.
I couldn't.
With that,
I couldn't take it outside the house. Like, I couldn't. You couldn't be in a Starbucks.
Not without a baseball cap off to the
like,
side.
I would have to put a sticker on it that says sorry.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, I'm a dick. This was a gift. This was a gift.
What if you go
I did not choose this color myself?
gifted? If you go to a meeting, like a big Hollywood executive meeting, and you're pitching something, and you take your laptop out, and it's a gold laptop, and they all have the same exact gold laptop, is that cool or not so much?
Yeah, you bro fist when you do that.
You're
It's
like,
like a secret Hollywood language that you just do. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's true. Like when I love the 5K Retina screen.
Yeah.
But it actually does create the illusion that your writing is better than it is. Because the text
everything's
is
better?
so crisp, you think this has got to be solid gold that I'm writing here. The type just looks really great. It's
Midas
not
didn't
necessarily good
have the
writing.
gold. Midas made things gold.
Okay.
Right. He touched things and turned them into gold.
They didn't update the MacBook Air substantially. It's Haswell now. It's the faster Haswell processor. So
what are we talking about
the
now?
MacBook Air, the new MacBook
okay.
Airs. So the MacBook Air is actually going to be faster than the more expensive MacBook in most cases. No Retina screen, 2 times faster SSD, more or less the same price across the board from what I can tell.
So still a good option.
I think the 11 inch is okay. I think the 13 inch is a dud. I think if you don't get the Retina at this point, so the 13-inch Retina.
How much is the 13-inch Retina MacBook?
It starts at $1,400, I think.
How much?
Oh no, I'd have to look. I don't remember that off the top of my head. Maybe Norm or Jeremy can check that out while I'm. So the 13-inch Retina has Haswell now, has the faster SSD.
Broadwell.
Sorry, Broadwell. All of these are Broadwell when I've said Haswell. 10-hour battery up from 9, and it has the Force Touch trackpad. I'm interested in trying the Force Touch trackpad. I'm glad that it still has the scissor keyboard. I'm really skeptical of the.
Again, you won't know until
keyboard.
you try it. That's
Shorter
the thing.
key. I'm just thinking about I hope that Apple would not ship a keyboard as shitty as the ones that come on the Surface, those Surface covers.
Oh,
But those
God, no, there's no way it's that shitty.
I'm just...
That's not possible.
That's the low bar for keyboards right now for me. So we'll see. I think the 13-inch Retina is a good buy. I think the 11-inch Air is a good buy. Big, giant question mark on the MacBook. And I think a no-go on the 13-inch Air.
Okay.
Are we ready to talk about the watch? We're now 2 hours and 11 minutes into this podcast. I think Jeremy might have started gnawing on his own leg over this.
Let's talk about the
the
watch.
longest run he's had yet, I think. They released a ton of... They retreaded the entire October presentation, basically, in the keynote.
Yeah, they kind of just reintroduced it.
Here are facts, according to Apple. They're saying 18 hours of battery under normal use, including some GPS, some
Doesn't have a
activity tracking,
GPS.
some heart rate, some just normal standing and sitting at your desks, telling the time a certain number of
Right.
times a day, etc.
Right.
No GPS. It has a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection, so as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi network, it will continue to work, which is different than the Pebble, because if I leave my phone in the bedroom and walk around in the house with the Pebble, it's always vibrating and saying, "Hey, I can't see the phone. Where's the phone?"
I do actually like this idea because I use this now sometimes with the even on the Mac and on the iPad. Is
The
that
continuity stuff.
The phone rings at home,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh shit, where's my phone? But like I've got my Mac there, and I can just pick the call up on Mac. If you've got you can just Dick Tracy it.
Yeah, how's
As
the
long-
audio quality for those calls?
We'll see.
Are you on the Mac?
On the Mac.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, I do that on my iPad. I think, yeah.
People don't care.
You can't tell. I mean, it's like a speakerphone, but it's as same as the iPhone
It's a great
speakerphone.
luxury. I'm sitting on the couch at home with my laptop, my MacBook Air on my lap, typing away, and my phone starts ringing. But I may not even be able to hear the actual phone ringing because it's in somewhere else in the house. I've lost it somewhere.
Yeah, I know.
But it pops right up. Take the call on my Mac. Done. Brilliant.
Good.
And obviously the benefit if you've got the watch on your wrist, presumably you've always got it on. You're not going to miss a call. So that's nice.
Right. That stuff's good. Coincidentally, Google announced that the Wi-Fi connectivity feature is coming to Android Wear in the next update, basically after the keynote, sometime between the keynote and yesterday. The watch, they talked about the way the linear motion thing taps your wrist rather than being a vibration. So it's going to actually feel like something's tapping on your wrist rather than, the vibration feeling that we're all used to. The screen is force sensitive. They talked about that in October. You can differentiate between a tap and a press, presumably between a press and a hard press as well. And you use the crown to switch between apps. You click the crown to go in. The button down below the crown makes you go back. It seems like they didn't explicitly say that, but from watching the demos, that's what I took away. The charger's magnetic. It snaps onto the back. And then they get into claims. So they claimed it's the most accurate watch ever within 50 milliseconds of GMT or UTC as measured by cesium
Always
atomic
struck
clocks.
me as an odd thing to claim, given
Yeah.
that it's connected to the internet.
Yep. It's super dumb.
Yeah, it should always just be like connected to an atomic clock,
Right.
Every
That's
now
what-
and
that's
again,
what
and
they're
it's
saying.
always being correct, right?
Yeah. Well, I think they're going after the watch people who are like, my watch is accurate. My Omega is accurate to
Yeah.
between 50 seconds a year or something, or 3 seconds a year or something like that. So, okay, you got to make dumb claims for watch people, I guess. They showed a bunch of the way the watch works. I'm going to run down this one step at a time. So the watch faces, which is arguably the most important part of the watch, seems like that's probably the home screen, like the default resting screen for the watch from what we could see.
I think like when you raise up your wrist
Right.
and it wakes up, what you're going
That's
to
what you
see
see.
is a clock.
Yeah,
Right.
and if you want to go see apps, then you use the crown. If you want to see glances, you swipe up from the bottom. But the default is the watch face, and it looked like they were, by looking at the seems like several dozen that are visible variants of the digital and analog watch faces that are visible on all the sample images on Apple.com. It seems like you can configure almost every aspect of that. The way the hands look on the analog watch, whether you have a second hand, whether you have a millisecond dial, whether you have chronometer features on the watch, whether you have things that they call them complications, which are
I'm sure Apple loves having to use that word now. Complications.
I think they're into it. It seems like so
they've
they put it on
embraced it.
they put it on their
They're
page.
embracing the vocabulary of watch
You're more of a watch guy
people.
than I am. Is that something that's an actual watch?
No,
person term,
I
right?
learned. I haven't worn a watch in a long time. I used to wear a watch all the time. I wear them much less so now.
But is complications an actual watch term? Or is it something Apple is just telling us is a watch term?
Yes, it is. But I only know that because I learned it a couple of days ago as part of this conversation.
Okay.
But yeah, when you see like a second hand or a thing that shows you the date, anything that's telling you more than the hours and the minutes of the day is in watch parlance a complication. So what's cool is some of these complications on this watch can be basically widgets like apps that will be visible from the home screen that you can just tap and go straight
from
to.
the watch face.
Yes, from the watch face.
So between the complications and the configurable nature of the watch faces, it seemed like your watch and my watch can look complete. Like it seemed like if I wanted to replicate the interface on my Speedmaster, I totally could, which is cool. It seems like if I wanted to have an analog watch face with no markings around the edges, no numbers, nothing, I could do that. If I wanted to have just numbers, I could do that. If I wanted to have just odd numbers, I could do that. If I wanted to have all the hash marks and no numbers, all of that stuff is possible.
Yeah, and a part of this, of course, is coming up with watch faces that match the actual exterior of the watch, whatever bezel and strap you're going with. You want a watch face that will be in sync with that style.
If you go to the page that shows all of the watches side by side, all 36 models or whatever it is, it seems like they did a very deliberate job tailoring the face to match the intended purpose
like on the
of the
sport watch, you're not necessarily going to have like an elegant watch face. You're just going to have like a digital thing, or it's going to look fairly straightforward. But at the crazy high end, you're going to want like the Omega Speedmaster type chronograph.
But it seems like you can also switch between those as you wish by just force pressing on the screen, hard pressing on the screen, and then sliding back and forth between them, customizing them to suit, etc. It's unclear whether like each one locks into position or if you can save favorites or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll figure that stuff out.
I'm sure they'll be able to add
next month.
They'll add more as they go as well.
There's also like novelty faces. There's a Mickey Mouse face. There's some stuff that has like butterflies and flowers and lunar scapes and weird stuff like that. The complications. The ones that I saw were notifications, activity, multiple activity, ways to show activity, actually. Your next meeting, your day and date, sunset, sunrise, alarms, timers, world time, temperature, weather, lunar phase, a full-on Ori showing the position of all the planets in the solar system. So it's a mixture of stuff that you would see on a traditional, like Swiss mechanical watch and shit that's only possible in a smartwatch, which I think was pretty cool.
Well, that's the thing. I think you can customize it to the point of it. Like, if you're the kind of person who's constantly going around saying, "Ooh, what song is that?" You can have Shazam like right there on the face of the watch.
I don't know if you can get that far in.
I think maybe you can.
I didn't see Shazam on the watch face, but wouldn't surprise me if that's possible.
Okay.
It's also unclear what I need to go and look at the API docs to see which of these things are accessible to developers and which aren't.
Exactly.
Because all of the stuff that they showed and all the stuff that's displayed is all stock stuff.
Right.
So it's unclear to me if Shazam can do the thing that you
if
just said.
Shazam can maybe even make their own watch face.
And I don't know if I want...
Shazam is listed in the apps.
Yeah, I know
But
they're in
that
the apps,
doesn't-
but can they make a watch face?
No, they don't make a watch face, but you can have one of the complications can be the Shazam button that will take you straight
Maybe,
to the
maybe
app.
not.
Unclear.
Like he's saying, every complication that we saw was an Apple-produced complication.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you might want to have your fart app like right on your watch face.
I mean,
Make
I'd
your
love to
watch-
have a fart
make
app
your watch
handy.
fart instantly whenever you want.
Glances. So glances, when you swipe up from the bottom of the watch face, you can see specific kinds of info. This stuff is accessible by application, so this is where your Shazam comes in, I think.
Right.
Weather, calendar, heart rate, all of that stuff. The heart rate monitor doesn't run all the time. It seems like that's kind of a battery hog. Judging from the way the Fitbit Surge works, that wouldn't surprise me at all. The glances I know you can build from your app. So if you have your podcast app, you can go in and control your podcast app from that specific.
Right, so those are basically like shortcuts to things that you use the most commonly.
I think that's the widget analog probably rather than the thing. The weird thing that Nile at The Verge pointed out is that glances are only accessible from the watch face, not from every screen on the watch.
Not from the home screen.
Not from the app, the list of applications, not from app screens. So it doesn't behave like Control Center does in iOS. It actually is just, it only is visible from the watch face.
And certain watch faces allow more complicated. Like there's a watch. Like if you want the most amount of shit on your watch face,
Yeah.
there's a watch face that
Right.
will allow that. Like the Mickey Mouse watch design, for example, probably doesn't allow you to add a bunch
Right,
of
there's
stuff
like
on
3 or
top.
4 around
But
the
if you
edges,
want to
maybe.
like press one button and instantly see, oh, there's my next meeting, there's my heart rate, blah blah blah. There are watch faces that are designed to give you the most.
But glances and
information.
watch faces are different things.
Yes.
So glances, it seems like you'll be able to have as many of those as you want, or some arbitrary limit that Apple decides. I don't know. We'll see. Communication was the big thing that they focused on. You have a friends list that's managed by the Apple Watch app and presumably ties into your contacts.
And that's what that second button actually is.
Is it that
it's the
pops up
button
the
that
friends
activates
wheel?
everything that's like communications related.
It brings up a little dial of your
Yeah,
friends.
it brings up a little wheel.
That
of
was
your-
that
of your-
radial menu with the
Yes.
circles around the edges? Okay.
Yes.
But it's unclear to me how many people can fit in that and who those people
It looks
are.
like the circles get bigger or smaller.
Yeah, but there must be a maximum limit. I mean,
sure, yeah.
And or isn't there? Can you like dial down
Do,
into letters?
do any of us
Yeah.
really need to worry about that? Like, how many friends can we fit on
Norm's
our
not
watch?
getting one. Joey's not getting one. So it's like you guys and my wife, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe your wife?
I don't think my wife's going to get a watch.
What,
Okay.
you're saying it's only other watch owners?
I'm sure it's only other watch owners.
Why?
Because of the next part. Most of the stuff that they showed in the communications section, like all of the intimate, fleeting communications, like drawing a picture and having it show up on the other person's watch the same way,
Yeah.
or tapping the watch and having their watch tap them, or sharing your heartbeat with a loved one. Those only work with other watch owners.
That's true.
Right, and that's the
Yeah.
thing is like I'm only gonna send like little tippy tap love messages to my wife, and I doubt she's gonna get a watch.
Here's the thing.
I might have to start like sending love messages to people just because they have the watch.
If we're in Transformers
Like
5,
I don't really give a shit about you, but like tap tippity tap anyway. Because my God, oh, you have a watch as well.
here's a scenario, Gary.
Yes.
You and I are sitting in Transformers 5 with Norm and Jeremy.
Yeah.
You're on one end of the group, I'm on the other, but I want to get your attention to
Right.
make fun of something very specific.
Right.
I might open up the watch and start tapping.
But how am I
So
supposed to translate that? Are you going to
Morse
draw like
code.
a,
No, then
are
you
gonna
look
draw
over
a
at me and
turd
I'll
or
be like,
something? So you can just tap someone's.
yeah. Like if you
Okay.
had the ability to make somebody's wrist move at any given moment, would you do that? I would do that in the middle of the night just to make you jump.
But I would take my watch off.
Well, then it'll make your nightstand make a noise.
No.
Either way, I win.
I'm sure. No. Some of that stuff doesn't happen if you're not
Yeah,
wearing it.
Probably
You're
when
not
it's
wearing
on
it.
when it's on the charger, it doesn't work.
The tapping and the hearts and all that, like, I get it, but it's a gimmick. I don't see that being a thing. Like, yes, when the 3DS came out, it was the DS or whatever. It was fun to like draw cocks and send them to each other on Picto
That
Chat.
was
but,
fun.
Like, that lasted about 5 minutes. There's going to be a lot of cock, the classic cock and balls.
Yeah, the two half
one ball
circles
and then
and
that
the- yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And maybe you have some spunk coming out the end. If you want to get really
Little
graphic.
veiny bits.
Yeah, you could probably do some hairs and
Yeah.
little things.
God.
But like, yes, that's going to be great.
So here,
That's all I have to say about that.
That could be. I mean, that could well be endlessly entertaining.
Here's
Like, we're
my
all
thing,
doing,
though.
We're still doing that years from now.
this morning I was trying to get my wife's attention because I needed her to help me with something.
Yeah.
And I was in the car on the side of the road. If we were both wearing the watch, her iPad, for whatever reason, is what she was using, didn't have iMessage set up, so
Yeah.
she wasn't getting my texts.
Yeah.
I could have just tapped until she was like, what why are you bothering me?
But only if she's wearing the watch.
Well, presumably you wear your watch everywhere you go.
And that's why I'm most looking
But
forward
the point
to
is,
it.
you both
Yeah.
have to have the watch for it to work.
yeah.
Like if
I think that you and
guess
I consider this a problem,
My
but probably
guess
not
is that my
Apple.
wife is not, unless she sees mine and goes, "Oh my god,
Haven't-
that's actually really cool."
You haven't discussed it? This is a point
No,
of
I have.
discussion
I
in
have.
my house.
I have discussed it a little bit, and she
Okay.
and she shows no, like she hasn't. She doesn't care. She hasn't watched any of the videos.
Really?
Doesn't really know about the watch or what it does. Just
Kind
not,
of a
just,
Luddite.
just like yeah. Well, not a lot. It just doesn't. Isn't one of these people like as soon as Apple announces something, go it just doesn't really care. Like she has her
Yeah.
iPhone, she likes that.
Because so much of the fun of the Apple Watch has to do with interacting with other people who have one.
Yeah.
I've been planting these seeds ever since it was announced.
Yeah,
It's
an
in your
important plan.
interests for your wife
Yeah.
to have a watch.
So I've just been presenting it as something she's going to get.
but isn't it just another way for your wife to get your attention? I mean, that can
I'm
have
sure
its
you can
negative
mute her.
sides as well.
She gets my attention because I listen to my phone and it's on text message and I hear it buzz, but she not always does.
Like my wife constantly is trying to get my attention because I'll constantly like be distracted or wander off somewhere. Just
True.
like an aimless child, and she'll need to like get me back. And sometimes I don't have my phone around. So this is actually, I mean, she doesn't need to have to watch. Well, no, this
It's more kind of a digital
If you get
leash
the watch
for
as
you.
well, you can always get my attention.
Christ.
That's a selling point.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So you can draw an image, you can draw a cock, whatever you want. Pops up on your friend's watch and then kind of poofs away.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very pretty.
One of the things Norm, do the Android Wear watches, when they're plugged in and charging, do they stop buzzing when they get notifications?
No, they don't.
Yeah, like this, it drives me crazy because you plug the Pebble in on the charger at night, and my phone gets a notification. It's on Do Not Disturb. It doesn't do anything there, but the watch is so stupid.
But the watch,
it just goes. Bzzz.
I manually turn it to,
But you shouldn't have to do that. If you plug it in the charger, you shouldn't get notifications on it
Sure.
anymore. They didn't say anything about that on Apple either. I hope that if you're watching Apple,
No, I
if
think
that
they
happened.
did.
Really?
I think they said that it won't do anything while it's off your wrist.
your glances won't work. That's
It
one of
knows
the
when it's-
battery.
So
knows
it's
when
secure at that point. Is it a security thing or is it a convenience thing?
I don't know.
Both, and also power saving.
Does it know when it's on the right wrist?
No.
No, it doesn't have like a DNA sensor or
Okay.
something. You can take and make calls just like you can with the iPad and Mac, just similar to continuity. So if your phone rings, your iPad's going to buzz, your laptop's going to buzz, your phone's going to buzz.
Yep.
Every laptop in your house that's hooked up to your Apple ID is going to buzz. And your watch is going to go off too. So you won't miss call. You have no excuse for missing calls.
Although it's a very simple thing, that's the best selling point for me.
Can you face? You can't
Because I
FaceTime.
constantly,
No camera.
My phone,
FaceTime audio probably though.
99. Whenever my phone rings, the chances are I don't know where the fuck my phone is.
Yeah.
This solves that problem instantly.
And you're
which is
talking to your watch.
great. Yeah, like
Hello?
Dick Tracy style.
I'm not.
Michael Knight.
That's true.
Well, yeah, what you do is you don't do this. You do this, like when Michael Knight's talking to Kit.
That's right.
Kit, I
did
need
always
you.
do this.
That's what you do.
That's
a
such a
crucial
cool digital
difference.
watch.
Yeah.
You can do texts. I thought this was an interesting demo. So he used Siri to send a text by
Right.
pressing in the crown. It didn't do the chime that I could hear on the video stream, and just started talking, and then was presented with two options. One is send audio. The other was the Siri, well, it was unmangled in the demo, but I know how it'll work in the real world. The text that Siri thought it heard you say. And I thought that was that was great.
Yep.
Totally down for that.
It happens in Android Wear. The only thing you can't do is the audio part.
Does it give you? Is it kind of like where it gives
Well,
you the?
hold on, but
just the
that's-
canned responses, like be right there or whatever.
For responding, yeah.
Okay.
But I can send Will a text message and dictate, and then it'll send you a text message. And I have the option
Yeah.
to dismiss if it's
Okay.
incorrect.
But I think the audio part is the thing that's
Yes.
neat, because then if it fucked up the message too bad, and you're just like, I don't want to fool with making this right, just say send the audio and let them figure it
that
out.
is a smart thing.
It also
Oh,
seems,
that's really cool.
Like that's super like that is such a spectacularly good idea for voice text.
That was the promise of visual voicemail, and then that got overtaken by all the
Text.
WeChat, text, and then back to one of the reasons that Snapchat and WeChat are
Okay.
so
No, I
popular.
like that. Just
so
send
you're
the
saying
audio.
visual voicemail is the future, is what you're saying.
It absolutely is.
So, like,
also-
if I send that to my wife, like a voice message, it will just show up like the way you do it now from phone to phone. Just
It's
send
in
a little
messages.
play button,
A little play
Yeah.
button in
and it will
messages.
play a little audio snippet.
Yeah, so
you like that.
Okay, I like that.
like I use that a lot now, but you can't do it with Siri on the phone. You can only do it with the watch.
It also seems like there's some context awareness because at one point he receives a message saying, "Where are you?" And one of the options to reply is my location.
Yeah.
Yes.
That stuff seems
Google
good.
now has that as well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Google Now-esque functionality. Like they showed a lot of like the notifications for meetings and stuff, assuming you put the calendar information in right, would say, put the location information to your calendar entries. It would say, okay, you need to leave now in time for your meeting to drive there.
Apple Now.
Which is what Google Now has been doing for years. Is literally my favorite thing that's happened for product. It's like having an assistant that's much smarter than I am.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's see, other communication stuff. You can read full emails if you're some sort of horrible masochist.
Yeah, it didn't sound good.
I didn't think that seemed good. They talked about activity tracking. Obviously, there's a heartbeat sensor on back. We've known that for a while.
There's the thing that reminds you to get up and move around.
That my jawbone does that. It's horrible.
Yeah, I'm going to turn that off.
It's the first thing I turned off.
That's like on a level of annoying of the Netflix thing when it says, "Are you still watching?" Yes, yes, of course I am. I want to be able to turn that off.
That only
annoys-
pops up after like 5 hours, man.
Oh yeah. No, it's not even 5 hours. But yes, I need.
I've never seen that before.
I really just want a toggle in my Netflix settings that says "Turn that shit
I'm
off."
always watching.
I'm always watching.
Yes. It tracks motion in different contexts, which is something that like Jawbone and that stuff has problems with. It's Jawbone. The most of the wrist-based activity trackers are pretty good if you're just walking or jogging or running. If you get on an elliptical or you get on a bicycle or stationary bike or something like that, they're almost but not quite useless. So they're saying that they have different profiles for all the machines that you might use in the gym. Was exactly what I think Tim Cook said. That's interesting to me. It'll remain to be seen if that stuff is actually accurate. It should be relatively straightforward if you're on, especially like CrossFit machines, to see how many calories the machine says you burn versus how many calories the watch says you burn, and see how that stuff works out. And then the activity information you can drop in like a complication anywhere on most of the watch faces, it seems like. Notifications, you can get everything from your phone if you want. It seems to be presented in a relatively attractive way for most applications that they showed. You can also configure notions on a per app and maybe per person, seems like. So you only get notifications from your friends or people on your favorites list or something. I don't know how that stuff is going to work.
Okay.
Presumably that'll be controlled by the app. It was a little bit unclear.
Okay.
I desperately hope that this doesn't mean that there are going to be even more places to manage notifications. Because right now, like if you have 50 apps on your iPad and iPhone, then having to keep those so they don't make you crazy right now is I spend way more time on that than I ever really want to.
Right.
Like I would love to see a centralized notification panel for all my devices. It's like, okay, here are all the things that you have that can send you notifications. Here's all the places that I want to get those notifications.
Right.
And it's like watch, phone, Mac, iPad, whatever. You can also do Hey Siri.
Yep. Now, how is it doing that? Because Hey Siri only works when your iPhone's plugged in because it's constantly using power.
Well, presumably you move your wrist to lift it up and say, hey Siri, and that's kind of wake up. I don't know. We'll find that out soon.
This sounds like a really simple one. I presume you can do this. Can I control music through it? So
presumably that's one of the glances.
My phone's somewhere else in the house, but I can go through my iPhone's iTunes library and like throw music to a Bluetooth speaker that's nearby or something.
So you can put music on the device, up to 2 gigs of music on the device itself, which is like I don't want to do.
I don't want to do that. I want to I just want to remotely access music that's either on my phone or my Mac or
RDO
something.
or whatever.
iTunes Match.
It's unclear, but I would like every other smartwatch can do that. So if they don't do that, they've kind of fucked up.
Yes.
I mean, of course, every other smartwatch just gives you simple play controls. Android Wear works the same, right, Norm? Where you can play, pause, fast forward, etc.
Yep.
At most places, you're not going to want to browse through a library. Like I don't want to browse through my library of 30,000 songs on iTunes.
Right.
But
I can say, hey Siri, play songs by the Beatles.
Yes. They showed Apple Pay. You just bump the watch. You don't do a fingerprint.
Okay. There's another one I like because I love Apple Pay, and this is easy because you just go.
Shocked.
Apple Pay's good.
I'm worried about the security of that. Like if I lose the watch, does that mean? I guess I'd have to lose the watch and the phone.
You have to lose the phone as well.
But still.
So it takes away the Touch ID.
Yeah.
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 Which means that if somebody mugs me and takes my watch and my phone,
they take their watch and your phone,
go crazy.
Yeah.
They could get in, and basically, but they would have to do it before you could get to another Apple device and kill it.
Regain consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
I presume it's more difficult to take your watch than your phone. Probably difficult to take both.
I don't know if you get mugged. In my experience, when people are mugged, frequently they take jewelry, valuables, and wallet. So, that would be 3 out of 3. The integration, they showed integration with NFC smart locks, which is interesting because they don't currently allow third-party applications to integrate with NFC sensor on the phone, on the current phones. So that implies that you'll be able to use the NFC both on the watch and hopefully on the phones as well. But basically, he just held up the phone to a lock and it unlocked. He said that's what you would do.
Yeah. I like the garage door opener.
Yeah, so they showed, that was alarm.com, I think. Was that it?
They showed a live video feed of a garage door, and he hit the open button, and he could watch his garage door open.
Will that work with my existing system?
Do you have a smart home system?
No, I have to buy all that stuff as well.
You have to buy all that stuff too. It's only a few grand. You're good. Once you buy your edition, you'll have plenty of money left over. 8 gigs of onboard storage, 2 gigs max for music, 75 megabytes of photos, which seems like it's super tiny, but I would assume you'll resize them for the size of the screen. Do we know what resolution these screens are?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they've had this for a while. And it's one of my biggest pet peeves because in all the advertising, whether it's print or even on their website, they're using basically like really high resolution images for the screen itself, not showing, the grid, the pixels on the screen. Because this is not a, quote, retina density screen. It's very comparable to what's available right now in the Android Wear stuff. Because as you increase pixel density, you need bigger backlight, you need more power. But the two different watches use different resolution screens, the two different sizes, whether it's 38 or 42.
What are the resolutions?
Jeremy?
It's loading.
It's 312 by 390 for the 42 millimeter version and 272 by 340 for the 38 millimeter version. That's according to the WatchKit SDK that came out earlier this year.
We talked about that a while ago. I'm a little concerned because what that means for developers has yet to be seen. If there's going to be perfect parity between the two devices and what that, if that adds development time.
I would have been more concerned before they did the Plus, and that stuff has worked out pretty well so far as a Plus user.
Yeah.
Like that phone it looks good for everything that uses the current SDK.
Because on the Plus, they render at a high resolution and then scale down.
Right.
Here, maybe that's what happens. They render on the higher one and then scaling down for the 38 millimeter.
Or, you just tell it which one you have and it renders the app and it works. Presumably they could do something that's similar to the way Android works, where it's just all renders from the corner of the screen and works itself out. Or they're having developers make two different views for each application.
That was the impression I had.
Yeah, that's what I kind of felt like too.
$50 difference.
Apple's going to replace the batteries.
Yes.
They'll replace the batteries. Is it on all three models or just the high-end one? It seemed like it was all three from what I was able to tell.
I didn't hear that.
So the batteries will eventually die out?
3 years.
Every lithium-ion battery has a charge cycle of between 1,000 and 1,500 cycles, depending on what
So you
kind of
just
load
take
you
it
put
into
in.
an Apple store and they'll do it for
Presumably.
free? Okay.
I don't know if it's for free. I would be surprised if it's for free.
All right.
But I would suppose you
But they'll
pay
do
them
it.
money
Okay.
and they'll replace the
All
battery
right.
after 3 years. Which isn't, like, if you have a battery-powered fancy watch, it lasts a year. So
I mean,
that's not-
I imagine they hope that you'll have bought a new one within 3 years as well.
that is a really good question. I don't know about that. I'm
Well,
Did they didn't talk any? They didn't say anything about their long-term strategy for
no, and it's
this
a,
product.
and it's a particular. I
not
don't know how
unexpected.
quickly we want to get into this, but when you talk about and again, who cares? Because none of us are this stupid or this rich. But when you talk about
I don't know.
when you talk about the $10,000 watch,
Yeah.
there's a lot of. I have a lot of issues with the $10,000.
Well, so
version of
let's
this
run down the
watch.
prices.
Okay.
There are three models. There's the Sport,
Yep.
which it starts at $349 for the 38 millimeter size. Which
350.
$350 or $400 for the 42 millimeter size. It's matte aluminum. There's no sapphire crystal, and it comes only with the plastic bands. It seems like as long as you stay in the same size chassis for the watch,
you could get the fancy band.
any band you
Right.
want for any watch.
I think the bands are universal across all models.
No, I think the 38 millimeter bands work with all 38 millimeter bottles, and the 42
yes.
millimeter bands work with
Yes,
all
but
42
you could buy the sport watch and put like a high-end steel bracelet on it if you wanted to.
I think that would look pretty silly because one's going to be matte, one's going to be shiny. But yes,
you could do it. They would fit.
Okay, after that you have the Apple Watch, which is $550 for the 38 millimeter or $600 with the plastic band. Fluoroelastomer, whatever nonsense.
right.
Up to $1,100 for the black stainless band.
Right.
So that is like, I think $600, $550 isn't out of the realm of possibility for a decent watch.
Nope.
That's something I would buy and expect to use for a very long time.
Yes. If you're spending more than $500 on a watch, you're expecting that to last you years and years. And of course, the issue is Apple products don't last years and years. If this is anything like a phone or an iPad,
Well,
it's going to be obsolete in a couple of years.
I don't know. It has more to do with inherent or market value. So with the solid gold ones, they're just going to have inherent value down the line. You can always sell it. I don't know if it's going to have the technological value to people, but at least you're buying a metal that actually has value.
But this is why I'm confused about the $10,000 watch, is because if this watch is anything like any other product that Apple's ever made, they're going to iterate every year. It's going to get better. It's going to get faster and slimmer or whatever.
Yeah.
And
You're going to want to
in a few years, the old one.
Just throw it in the trash,
If you're
guys.
buying a $10,000 watch, you're buying a watch for not just for life. That's a watch that you hand down to your kids, and
right.
I mean that's a serious investment.
Right, it's a multi-generational.
I honestly thought that for the $10,000 watch, there'd be some way to like pop out the guts, and they would just sell you the replacement guts that go in it because it's ridiculous. Who's going to replace their
Or an upgrade plan.
$10,000 watch
Yeah.
every couple of years?
You don't throw it away. I'm saying you can sell it if a year
Who's
from
going to
now.
buy a technically obsolete watch?
First
For
off,
$10,000.
there's collectors, lots of watch collectors.
It's the first generation of something.
Right, they're
this
not gonna
probably-
sell very many
this
of the
probably-
$10,000
This probably
ones.
accounts for like less than 5% of the watches they're going to make.
Less than that, I would say. Yeah.
But like, I'm very confused about the $10,000.
So, so the Apple Watch is polished stainless steel
Yes.
with sapphire crystal. It looks it's very distinct.
And
from
you can get
the,
it, and it comes in either the silver or the darker gray, right?
The only way to get the darker gray one is to buy it with the matching band, which means you're looking at a $1,050 or $1,100.
Oh, it only comes in at the super high end?
I don't think you can get it with the plastic bands.
Okay.
It's that
I'd be
bit's a
more
little bit
inclined to get
unclear.
the silver one anyway, because it seems like it would go with more
The silver
straps.
the silver one seems like That's the one I'm going to get.
The Apple Watch, the steel.
The silver, the
Straight up
stainless Apple
silver,
Watch.
stainless steel.
Yeah, you get the
$550.
you get the good glass with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, because I want the sapphire.
Yeah.
I want to see I want to see how much damage we can do to that. The edition isn't worth talking about. I mean, it is
Well, as
in
a
context
curiosity,
of something
it is.
that's ridiculous.
So there are-
It starts at $10,000 with the plastic band, which is fucking crazy town. If you're gonna sell a $10,000 watch, at least put a
that's
leather
the-
band on it.
Well, that's the
Jesus
thing. No,
H. Christ.
people spent a lot of time the last couple of days talking about $10,000 watch. It's not, because the $10,000 watch is a combination that nobody would buy. You're buying if you're spending $10,000 on a watch, you're spending $17,000 on a watch.
Because that's what you have to pay another $7,000 to get the leather band.
No, to get the
gold band.
The gold band.
I don't think there is a gold band.
Or the highest,
There's a
whatever
gold
the
buckle.
highest quality band.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
to the top of the line one. So I don't get it for. This is what confuses me. Obviously, we're not in this echelon. This is like the Kanye West watch,
Yeah.
right? It's these people that are going to buy these watches, like super billionaire type people.
And who were
Who don't-
already buying,
who-
iPhones that were dipped in gold,
Well,
right,
but here's
by
what-
third party.
yes,
And now
but-
Apple's just making part of that dollar.
Well, but okay, so you raise a very good point. There's two things about this that baffle me. One is, so I thought it was just fascinating. Somebody had a blogger who he blogs about high-end watches, like Patek Philippe and these kind of like super rich watches, and it was a fascinating read. Just if you're interested in watches, about like why is that certain watches cost as much as they do? Like why is a $50,000 watch that expensive? What are you actually paying for? And what you're paying for is like basically the fact that it's handmade. If you're paying more than $10,000 or $15,000 for a watch, that you're paying for the number of hours that went into it being handcrafted.
and making something that's incredibly precise and handcrafted.
Yes, and the fact
that's hard to do.
the parts were not outsourced. There's basically a guy who's kind of like the Hattori Hanzo of watches, who lives
Right.
in like
Switzerland.
He lives somewhere in Switzerland, and he only makes a few watches a year, but he makes them all by hand, and they're super precision crafted, and they cost fortunes.
It's like buying Persian rugs that are made by hand.
because you're
by a
paying
family
for that
and-
guy's
yeah.
time and expertise. You're paying the same amount of money for an Apple Watch, but it's something that is mass produced in a Chinese factory. So how does that really add up?
It's literally a thing that you're buying because it's expensive.
Yes, you're buying it to show off. You're buying it because you can.
Which is fine.
And they're selling it because they
But-
can.
And here's
Right.
the other thing. Another piece that I thought was very interesting made the point about, is it a good idea for Apple to be getting into the exclusivity market? Part of the appeal of like the iPhone, if like the gold, you can buy the gold iPhone and essentially you have the same phone that Kanye has. Before he goes off and spends money dipping
Gets
it in
it dipped,
gold,
yeah.
you basically are getting the same phone that he can't buy from Apple a better phone than you can. But now with the watch, people can. You
so
say,
you-
well, you can't. There's a new tier of exclusivity for the super rich that Apple has created,
But
and that
here's-
has the potential to alienate people.
Here's the thing, though. The watch that you're buying from Apple for $10,000 or for $17,000 isn't actually functionally better than the $349.
No, it's not.
So that argument kind of falls apart at that point. If the $17,000 one had a quad density screen that was much higher resolution and had 128 gigs of memory instead of 8, then I think that would be a fair argument. All they're doing is saying, hey, here's a gold option for people who are ballers.
But stupid ballers though.
Yeah, stupid
because this
ballers.
is what remains.
The thing is, I don't think that the edition is going to make a dent in Apple's revenue. Bottom
Absolutely
line,
not.
Right? Even if they sell a bunch of them, they make bajillions of dollars. It's not going to make a difference. I think the reason that it exists is to make the $1,000 watch more palatable to their average.
That's
average
exactly
consumer.
right.
I mean, maybe so.
Also-
I just don't get it from the consumer side. If you're a billionaire and $10,000 is like pocket change, I get it.
You're going to get it.
Right. And those people
and
can, and
guess
those
what?
people can buy the new watch every year.
But you know what?
And-
The billionaires I know don't wear $10,000 gold watches. That's why they're billionaires.
Right. No, they're wearing
Sure.
they're wearing $1 million watches.
There are millionaires who will buy this. The Kanyes will buy this, and it's the aspirational aspect because you can still spend $350 and be functionally on the same level.
See, I'm not thinking about
And
it the
there are
way
people
I'm
who
not
are
thinking
buying
about it
in.
the way a billionaire thinks about it. I'm saying, well, you buy a $10,000 watch, but it's going to be obsolete in a year when the newer one comes out. If you're buying a $17,000 watch, you don't give a fuck. You just buy the new one a year from now.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
But you are bought in, and you are given the perceived exclusivity. Makes you more incentivized to buy in.
$17,000 a year to a multi-millionaire is nothing.
It's
So
like
fuck
$20
it.
for you or me.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I printed out two size models.
Ooh, this is interesting.
Hey, you did it.
42. Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. That was a great idea. 42 millimeter, 38 millimeter. I haven't put them on the calipers to see if they're actually to scale.
Now, where did you get this model from?
It's on Thingiverse. You can just download it.
Okay, so which one is this one?
This is the big one.
Okay.
That's holding up to my wrist. The 42 is about the same size as my Speedmaster. Like,
See, I wasn't sure because I've got very skinny,
I have
kind
dainty girl
of
arms
girly
too,
wrists.
yeah.
But it's going to be the 42.
The 42 is where to
That's
go.
what I
Even the
decided
42
as well.
seems kind of small.
And look, I have
Yeah, I'll try
the
you.
Android Wear, which is
That's big.
and it's
bigger.
Show me the 38.
Here's the 38. The 38 is much smaller than Android Wear, and also
Oh God, no! That's tiny.
The 42 is actually smaller than the Android Wear,
Yeah.
if assuming this is correct. The suits Android
42. That makes it easier for me. 42.
So, okay. So the other thing to talk about in this context is, they're not making all the bands available to all the sizes. So, for example, the 38 millimeter size is the only one that gets the fancy leather modern buckle. The larger one gets a kind of janky, weird pillowy looking leather strap. Or the classic buckle.
So let me ask you. Obviously, you're going to get one so that you can test it.
Yeah.
But do you, as Will Smith person, have
Yes.
interest in this?
I have interest in it. If I were spending my own money, I would not buy one today.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting one.
What do you like though? Like, what does your personal taste tell you that you would probably wear on your wrist?
If I were in the market for a $1,000 watch,
Yeah.
another expensive watch,
Yeah.
I would probably buy either the stainless bracelet or the mesh one.
Presumably the good thing about
Or maybe a
the
leather
bracelet is that you're not rebuying that every year. You might rebuy the face.
you assume that, but who fucking knows?
Oh yeah, we made some slight adjustments this year. You're gonna need to get a new strap.
Here's the thing.
What if they make smart straps?
Look at the way they like Apple has a really bad history of treating second generation customers really well and first generation customers very poorly. Like the iPod is the only example of a thing that they launched and still support to this day, right? That's not an actual computer. The iPad 1 lasted until iOS 5 came out and it was garbage for the year before that. The iPad 2 and iPad mini 1, not the Retina one, but the one that's essentially an iPad 2, is unusable in iOS 8.8. They don't gradually degrade their OSs. They stop supporting it the year after it's become bad. So I would think really long and hard about whether you want to buy a Apple Watch this year if you are a person for whom $350 to $1,100, however much you're going to spend, is a lot of money for you.
Generation 2 is going to be noticeably better.
And it could, if past history is any indication at all, there will be a significant industrial design change between Generation 1 and Generation 2 once they find out how people actually use these things.
Yes.
And change either the CPU, the screen, the memory, all the different stuff. Like right now, it's a we're going to put this thing out there and see how people use it. And then next year, they'll have a much better idea and can tweak the existing. They probably have 3 or 4 different prototypes in process for next year, and they'll be able to decide at some point in the next 12 months which direction they're going to go based on actual usage.
I will say this is by far the greatest example of an Apple product that I will buy on day one because thank God I can afford it and I like new shiny things and I like to try new things and I'm an early adopter, but it is the Apple product that I least understand why I want or need it.
Well,
I definitely want it, but I don't yet understand or have any confidence that I'm going to get a great deal of value out of it.
So that was the other thing I noticed about the press conference. Usually when they showcase a new platform category, say the iPad, they said, here, you're going to read on this thing. This is going to be the way this is the way you touch the internet, right? This is how you're going to use it. With the iPhone, it was, here's a phone, but it's more than a phone. It's a communications device. It connects you to the internet. It does all these other things. It's an amazing device that's going to change the way you live.
Yes, and no one needed to be convinced of that. It was self-evident that this was something that everybody was going to get a tremendous amount of use out of.
Right, but with the watch, they didn't come out and say, hey, this is a thing that's going to make you use your phone a lot less, which is what every Apple employee that I know that's used one says. Hey, I hardly ever pull my phone out of my pocket. I'm much more present. They can't come out and say, yeah, the thing that you buy for $600 every 2 years or $200 on contract or whatever, you're not going to need that as much after this.
But that's a good point. If this is a device that, even to a small degree, winds back the damage that the phone has done, where we're constantly just walking around with our phones out, staring at our phones, that's a good thing.
Well, but It's a kind of a condemnation of the phone at the same time.
I mean, maybe now that maybe. Well, yes, it is because we're
not going to lose the phone.
Because listen, the iPhone and the smartphone thing in general has been a double-edged sword. It's brilliant. It's connected us all. It's given us all this information. We have these incredible things.
All the world, yeah.
And but at the same time, it has also disconnected us from one another because you see, I do it all the time. I sit at home staring at my phone when I should be looking at my daughter or my wife, and you see whole families at restaurants all just staring at their phones, and they've become completely disconnected from one another.
But isn't it cheaper and better to just say, "Hey, I'm not going to be an asshole," and stop looking at your phone all the time than to buy another thing to look at?
It's also cheaper not to have a phone.
Well, I mean, did you read the shit phone article?
People are now.
That's not so.
People
I mean,
are-
people. That's not what people want to do. That's not what
People have become so reliant on their phones, and it's so part of their. It's part of them now. If you take it away, it's like amputating a limb. They are information junkies. They can't not have it in their lives anymore, and it's happened just in a few years that our brains have become wired to be dependent on always being connected to that gadget. So that's not going to go away. If the watch if the watch is kind of like methadone for that, whereby just casually glancing at your watch, you can be satisfied that you haven't got an email or you're not missing out on anything without having to constantly pull your phone out of your pocket. Maybe it's slightly better than where we are now, because where we are now with everyone staring at their phones all the time is fucked. That's the downside of what Steve Jobs.
And when your wife
wrought.
listens to this, you're going to be in trouble.
Well, she already knows all this stuff. I've admitted this. I'm just admitting it on a podcast.
Jeremy, you've been awfully quiet.
No.
Also, the Apple Watch, when the iPhone came out, it changed an industry because we really didn't like the phones we had before, and opened possibilities to what phones could be. But really, it's not a phone. And I think but people love their watches. Watches haven't been shitty for past several hundred years that we've had really good
Actually,
watches.
100 years. Watches started in 1910.
Watches haven't been shitty in the past 100 years, but it's only called a watch, but I don't think that's what they're selling. In 5 years down the line, just like this isn't a phone.
No, that's right.
Even
It's
though
not
we're
a
calling it
watch.
phone, it's not a watch.
It's a multi-tool, digital multi-tool on your wrist.
That's the biggest argument for not buying the watch today, because if you look at the direction, they're going,
pragmatic consumer,
right? If you're going to spend $1,000 on a watch one time in the next 2 decades, or in your life, probably for most people, then the time to buy it is when it's a standalone device that replaces your stupid phone and just becomes the thing that you carry with you all day.
If I can, this is I think is probably the best thing. For me, it was 2 things. There's 3 things. If I can get my wife to buy one as well. One is answer a call anywhere, not have to search for my phone when the phone rings. Secondly, my wife can get my attention all the time, and I can't make excuses anymore. I don't have my phone or whatever.
Tap, tap, tap.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm coming. Don't worry. And then the third one being, if I can get to a place where I don't have to take my phone out of my pocket, but nor do I kind of feel that weird withdrawal when I haven't checked my phone in 20 minutes, that's good too. Are you in the same place as me? Like, you're going to buy it because it's new and shiny and that's what we do, but you don't yet really know if it's going to be a thing?
I have other reasons, yes, but I also want to experience the new interface. We don't get to see a new Apple interface every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're early adopters.
And I'm pretty excited about that.
Right,
as,
but you're
as
not
an
buying
interface
it.
guy.
But you're not buying it on the foundation of I feel confident that this is something that will make my life better. Or
You're buying it as do as I say,
it's not like the
as I
phone
do.
was in that sense. No. But
are there going to be lines on April 24th?
Oh, I'm sure. There's always lines. There were lines for the iPad.
But you said you didn't think there were going to be lines.
I don't think there'll be lines for the $10,000 one.
Well, no, of course not.
the thing is, I'm perfectly happy being the techno junkie that I am.
It would be nice to see a line of like Kanye and Steve Ballmer and like
Waiting for the gold.
Mr. Moneybags from Monopoly.
Here's the super duper
Yeah.
VIP line of like
Mr. Peanut.
six multi-millionaires waiting in line.
Yeah.
By
in their
appointment
little,
only.
in their little
Their
lawn
own
chairs.
queues.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If this was a standalone device, I would be much more bullish on it. Is that right? Bullish. Yeah, bearish is when it's bad, right?
And just to be clear, without the iPhone, does it have zero functionality?
No, it tells time.
Plays
the clock
music.
still works, and it plays music that's stored locally.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
But
It
it's
can't
out of like
connect
it's out of a
directly to
shitty
the
little
internet.
speaker though.
No,
You
Bluetooth
can put
headphones.
of course,
headphones to
Bluetooth,
it,
right.
Yeah, because everybody loves Bluetooth headphones. They're great. Why would you not have a pair of Bluetooth headphones?
Well, but to a Bluetooth speaker or whatever is pretty
Oh,
decent.
fair enough.
I
But
could,
yeah, none
I
of
could
the
see
apps and
this
stuff
heading
work.
towards a point where it has a built-in cell connection, though, right?
Right.
How many generations later, I don't know. But
Assuming batteries, radios, and processors advance
So a
to the
fully
point.
self-contained iPhone on your wrist, basically.
Like that's a thing I would be super
That's got to
into.
be coming at some point.
You would
I
think-
also I don't see it because of the way the amount of content we light consuming in terms of Twitter.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't see this ever taking the place of carrying around
The
a phone.
point, yes. Yeah, so the
Regardless of the
self-contained phone
connectivity.
watch only works if you don't want to carry your actual phone around anymore. But you like having your phone because you can do all kinds of things on it that you can't do on the watch.
Here's the thing. Right now, there are 3 things in that portable world, right? 4 things if you count laptops. If this goes away and you carry one of these for the big stuff and one of these for the communication stuff, then I think that's not outside the realm of possibility. But I think current battery, current radio, current processor technology,
It's interesting.
It's at least 4 or 5 years.
That the iPhone and the iPad, when they came out, they were considered, and probably still are to a degree, content consumption devices, where we would use computers that had a keyboard and mouse as content input devices. But now we're getting to the point where the phone is a better input device than this new device.
Putting on your predicting hat.
Because I'm so good at that.
So the iPhone came out and spectacular. Everyone had an iPhone. Right now they're everywhere.
Well, it took a while. I mean, they didn't support Exchange and stuff like that out of the bat. They didn't have apps for a year.
Think about this. Would you not have gotten the first iPhone?
But quibbles aside, you would say that the iPhone has been a success.
Oh, no. I mean, they only sold 700 million.
Right.
Gary. It's been kind of a
The
disappointment.
iPad, after a generation or two, they're ubiquitous, right?
The
Everyone
iPad is actually, for me, as much of a life-changing device as the phone. I use the iPad every night. It's the thing that I use sitting on my couch or sitting in bed. It's frequently the first and last computer I touch every day.
Do you think that the Apple Watch will be the next thing of that? We're like 2 years, 3 years from now, pretty much, not everyone, but like you see Apple Watches everywhere.
Or wearable. It's a smart wearable thing on your wrist. Yes.
I
You
agree.
say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think maybe not in this incarnation, but something that has similar features. I think it has to be standalone. That's the thing that I don't get. The other thing that Jeremy talked about a little while ago is that the value of the gold in the watch is fixed. The thing about expensive watches like Omegas and Rolexes and Patek Philippe's and stuff like that is that they actually appreciate. They are devices that if you buy a used watch, it's going to increase in value because there are always going to be fewer of that particular model in the world and they're collectible. This is not going to be a thing that appreciates. Apple could stop supporting it in 4 years.
It's not just about the materials. If you buy a Patek Philippe watch or an Omega, Speedmaster or something like a $10,000 watch, the technology, the actual guts of that watch will never be obsolete. That watch will run for 100 years and will be as good in 100 years as it was. That's what you're paying for.
And your iPad
that craftsmanship, that quality.
I don't think
your iWatch is not going to be that. It's going to become obsolete. The actual
they're going to stop supporting it and stop updating
obsolete very quickly.
But I don't think you can buy this thinking that as a watch. Just like you can't buy a phone thinking it's
Then that's why the $10,000 one doesn't make any sense.
And again, people,
it only makes sense from a marketing standpoint and from a getting the crazy millionaires to buy into this product.
Some people buy watches, and that's the thing. I think they want that high-end adoption where most millionaires. I'm not wearing most millionaires are like, I'm not wearing a fucking $500 watch. What am I, a hobo? Like they're used to wearing a watch that costs as much as your car. And so maybe Apple felt like for that reason they had to offer them.
I mean, that's actually a point that I kind of get behind. If you are wearing it as a piece of jewelry, like jewelry is by default a much more personal expression of your individual being than a thing that stays in your pocket 90% of the time or 40% of the time.
But generally, I think even if you're super duper rich, if you buy a super expensive watch, Apple keeps saying, "Oh, this is the most personal device we've ever made." Okay, I get that, but part of what makes something personal is you have it for a long time. Like if I bought a $10,000 watch, I would probably wear that for years and years and years, and it's something you pass down, and it has
I lost my wedding ring the other day. Right, it's gone.
Right.
If you told me 2 years ago, I would be distraught at losing a half-ounce piece of metal that I've worn for 10 years.
Right.
I would have thought you were crazy. And I am, if I lose my phone, I just go to the Apple store and get a new one.
Right.
Like I lost my ring. I don't even want to replace it because it's not the same, and I'm super sad just thinking about it. So anyway, we're moving on. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's a weird I also think Jeremy's point's really good. I think his point that the $10,000 model exists to make the $1,000 seem like a value is actually probably totally true.
And I've kind of had I still think it's kind of obscene, but then so is any $50,000, $20,000 watch to some extent.
So is a $100,000 Tesla, for that matter.
Right.
Which one are you guys getting? What are you getting, Jeremy?
I'm gonna get the Sport, the black Sport, the $400 one.
What? And same thing for your wife,
No, she'll probably get. She wants the black as well. She'll probably get the smaller one.
Gary.
I'm going to get the stainless steel one, 42 millimeters with a cheaper band
Like a leather band, probably.
I mean, because this is where they get you. It's like you go, okay, well, $500 for a watch. Okay, all right. But then with the band that you want, you're talking about doubling the price of it. I would probably get the lower end band with a view to maybe upgrading. You know, you can end up with like a few bands.
The temptation I had was to get the low end watch with the low end band, and then save the nice band as like a birthday present or something like that.
It comes with 2 bands.
Which band does it come with?
The Sport comes with 2 plastic bands.
Same color?
Yeah.
So that when you wear one out, the other one.
I think it's 2 sizes.
The style that I like is similar to what Norm has got there, like a silver watch face and a brown leather band. So I'll probably look for something like. Do they have something like that?
They have a brown leather band. The thing that bums me out is that the cool brown leather modern band is only available on the 38 millimeter watches and not the 40 millimeter
hell.
watches.
Why are they doing this stuff?
Apple.
Wait, now explain to, I guess it should make perfect sense, but what is the point of the 2 different sizes? Is it
Ladies and men's.
right? But yes, but I also have really skinny wrists, so
You still have larger wrists than
There's no
a
point.
small woman.
It's just whatever you want.
Yeah.
The store app actually has, one.
Do they line up?
1-to-1? Yeah.
Did I print
you can
right?
sort of hold them up. To your,
so that's actually life size.
yeah.
No, but did I print them right? Did
Yeah.
you check?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
They're exactly right. Yeah.
Good. So that's Apple Watch.
The big one has a better battery too, by the way.
And they are then no question.
We're not going to talk about this again until April 10th.
They are going to sell the.
I think we're going to stop talking about it.
The bands will be sold separately, right? You can get
Yeah,
You can buy the bands separately. They range in price from $49 for the plastic ones up to $459 for the stainless steel silver link. And I think that the black metal link you can't buy
for the
separately.
silver link thing, if you want to have that adjusted, is that still going to be a thing that you like have to fuck about with like a special
I'm
tools?
sure
and
you have
stuff?
to go to the Apple store and have somebody do it.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Unfortunately, you can't buy the watch without a band. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Then you could just pick whatever you want.
You know what I want is the pocket watch style.
The Apple Pocket
yeah.
Watch.
The bands pop in and out.
Well,
with
you
a
know
button
there's
on
going
the
to be all
back.
kinds of third-party accessories that will
Oh, God.
end up doing this.
What a fucking nightmare.
Do you think this is because the Nano?
I still have my iPod Nano
Nano.
that had the fucking wrist strap on it.
I think they learned a lot from that. I
I'm
think
sure.
a lot. They were educated a lot about the third party, the gray market for the iPod Nano watches. That inform them how people want to
Honestly,
use.
it doesn't need to do that much
What they
for
want on
me
the
to.
wrist.
Like, if you just said to me, yes, you'll be able to pick up a phone call and have a phone call anywhere in the house. Doesn't matter where your phone is, and you can always get someone's attention in the house with a quick tap. I like that as well. And what was the third one that I said I liked?
It must have been very important to you.
Yeah, I can't remember. Oops.
The not having the constant need to look at your phone.
Oh, and that thing, not having to get the phone out all the time.
You know,
I
you
think
guys-
that's enough for me.
You guys laugh at the picture drawings, but kids are gonna love that.
Yeah.
Send a picture.
no, I think the
draw
picture
a picture
drawing's
to
awesome.
daddy.
A
think
kid,
the
really? A
tapping-
kid's going to have these watches?
No, they're gonna use their parents in order to send pictures to the other parent.
I think the
Okay.
tapping is gonna be a big deal.
Oh, yeah. My daughter will love that.
Yeah.
The tapping, like right now, we've talked about this on the show before. I'm not going to go into it. My wife carries her phone in her fucking purse, and she never hears it ring. When I need to get attention, I have to just keep sending texts
Yes,
until
my
it
wife
annoys
does.
her.
And my wife's phone is often on silent, so we'll be at Target or whatever, and we'll go, okay, well, I'll meet you back in a minute.
Maybe
I'll go over here and I'll go over here, and you go shopping
Gary.
separately, and then you go, okay, I'll call my wife. Never picks up the phone.
Maybe
And now you can say,
So a little-
I'm
little
waiting.
Tap tap
Look,
taparoo.
look what time it is.
Tap tap
Look
tap.
what time
Maybe
it
your
is.
wife is just feigning disinterest in the Apple Watch because she expects you to get her a rose gold one for her birthday.
I think no. I think my wife just honestly doesn't care. But again, it's one of those things where like once you see it, you might go, oh.
Yeah.
My wife has no interest in like getting the newest thing just because it's the newest thing. It's like show me why this would be useful to me.
Okay.
And then once I get it and go look, she go, oh,
I will say
maybe
that
she'll go, yeah, okay,
I'll
I'll
make
have one.
a bold prediction. It's going to be more successful than Google Glass.
Oh man, I'm glad I
Yeah.
recorded with H6 in addition to GarageBand.
I just wanted to say one quick thing about the event. It gave us a look at what the software actually looks like, whereas the October event gave us a bunch of motion graphics.
Yes.
And I liked that. I liked finally seeing that they actually pulled off a lot of the smoothness of the transitions.
Yeah.
That the drawings fade away in the way that they thought it might, and things like that. I think
And I do
it
think,
looks really good.
I do think it has that potential that Apple products often do have, is that once you actually get it,
Don't say magical.
But it's more impressive than
Right.
it seemed like on
Yeah.
paper. Although I did read one of the hands-on said it's more complicated. It's not as it's obvious how to use it and intuitive as a lot of Apple products are. Like there's a certain amount of learning curve, which is not typical
I saw that too.
of Apple stuff.
Because you're limited by the screen and how many.
I'm
inputs
super
are on it.
happy about that. I want to dive in and learn all that stuff, but I bet it will be a little confusing to some people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't buy it if you just need a timepiece.
Don't just.
Well, yeah.
Literally, don't buy it. Wait. You can wait. If it's going to be a thing that'll last for 5 years, right? So you can just wait a couple months and you'll. It's not like you'll be out a year.
Well, let's put ourselves back in 2007. Knowing what we know about the iPhone, would you have recommended people buy the first iPhone? Would you have bought
Well,
the
no,
first
yeah,
iPhone?
because the 3G was kind of a dog. Looking back on it,
But it had 3G.
but
an edge.
but the battery lasted like 8 minutes. I remember going to E3 when you had just gotten your 3G and you were plugging in constantly.
Yeah, so maybe it's.
We've all-
hit
we've
the first
all-
one and it'll be the odd number, the good ones.
We've all been doing
that's
this for long
possible.
enough now. We know the routine. Anytime you buy something new, you assume a certain amount of risk when you adopt early. There's a chance that, especially when it's first generation, like the new MacBook or
just
like
wait
the
for
iWatch.
reviews, man. That's all I'm saying.
Why would no? But I like.
You can do whatever you want. You're a big boy.
Yes.
Jeremy also can do whatever he wants. He's a big boy.
Day one.
I have to buy shit. Norm has to buy that laptop.
And you're going into it with your eyes open, right? You understand all the risks you assume when you buy something
God.
day one, and you've
Yes.
accepted those risks.
Absolutely.
My money will go for virtual reality this year.
3, our long national nightmare continues. There's a new Chromebook Pixel. It's still $1,000. It's still expensive, right, Norm?
Still expensive, better specs. People
I heard
have
it looks a
now.
lot like the new MacBook.
No,
God, no.
it has the USB-C.
A lot of people I know and trust are really into Chromebooks. I think we should take another look at them because it's been a long time.
It's not worth $1,000.
Is
I don't know. I think we should buy one of the cheapo HP ones and see how it is.
Is USB-C going to start
Yes.
showing up really quickly?
Yes.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
the sooner we get out of the age of fucking USB connectors only going in one way, the better.
Yep.
I'm so sick of that shit.
Android 5.1 was announced. I missed this entirely because I was on the plane yesterday.
Stability, some performance, minor features. You can choose your Wi-Fi network in the quick draw stuff now. Minor things.
And this is an OS level update, so it'll come to Nexus stuff quickly, and then everything else will trickle out in the normal rate.
Google Calendar for iOS was released.
That actually I have on my phone. I haven't tried it yet. Is it any good?
It's wonderful. It has the same interface design as Inbox.
Am I going to use this instead of Fantastical?
Well, I mean, it's free for one, so I think a lot of people will
Free
use it.
goes a long way.
And if you already run Google Calendar, it's a huge plus. So I'm going to probably start using it instead of Fantastical and see how I like it.
And how does it integrate with your iOS calendar?
Well, I use Google Calendar, so I don't know. I use
But Fantastical.
exclusively.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I use Google Calendar with my iOS calendar. Like that syncs over to iOS.
Yeah, that might be happening for me. I never look at my iOS calendar.
Okay. And then the thing we were going to talk about, Gary just walked away. So we'll talk about that and what we've been testing. I'm going to play some music if I can find that app. It feels like it's been like 6 hours since I pressed this button last. Hey, Norm. Mm-hmm. I went to Boston.
Okay.
I took this thing right here.
Looks like a keyboard.
It is an awesome little keyboard. It's kind of expensive. I think we have a show and tell coming up with it soon, so you'll be able to see more about it there, but I want to talk about it because it's rad. It's the Microsoft Universal Bluetooth keyboard. It came out maybe 3 months ago. It is a Bluetooth keyboard that you charge with micro USB. It has rechargeable batteries. It's like 90% key size, so it's a little tiny bit smaller. But it has 3 switches, and it has a 3-way switch, and you can bind a different device to each position on the switch. So I have it paired with my phone and my iPad. Just I only have 2 devices.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, and here's the cool part. Fold it out flat, Jeremy, and then put this in the rack. It has a stand for my iPad that's a pretty good angle for me to use it on the plane or at a desk or something like that.
Whoa.
And I only took my iPad with me to Boston to see how it worked. So we have some CMS issues that preclude us from using the CMS with the iPad. But aside from that, like I was writing in Evernote and Pages and stuff like that, and it was great. You can put your phone in it vertically, which works really well for Evernote and stuff like that. And the keyboard, while the small size took a little bit of getting used to, the experience was really good. It maps depending on the device you connect it to, so it'll work with Windows, Mac, Android, or iOS. And depending on the device you connect it to, the different keys map the right way. Hold on, put that back on there. I got one more. There's one more thing. So like you hit the search button, it takes you to the Spotlight search on iOS. It takes you to Android, to Google Now on Android. The home button takes you to the iOS home screen. Double tapping it takes you to the multitasking screen, etc. Slide, you can pop the keyboard and the stand apart. They're magnetically attached. So grab the keyboard and pull it apart from the screen. So that means when you're sitting at a desk, like at a hotel or something like that, you can actually use it at the comfortable distance instead of like as close as it goes. And the battery, I've been using the same battery charge for about 3 months now. I am a huge fan of this thing. It's $65 at Amazon. It is really, really good if you have an iPad and or phone and need a keyboard.
Nice work, Microsoft.
It's like Harry McCracken.
It is. I don't know about that, but it's pretty cool.
He's used iPad exclusively
for a long time. Yeah. If RCMS supported, like you can't use the text editor on RCMS with the iPad or iPhone.
Do they make this for the Surface?
It's a Bluetooth keyboard, so it works with anything with Bluetooth.
You can't request desktop site.
It doesn't work, right?
But they
The
basically
JavaScript
made
doesn't
this
do it.
for just whatever.
For any device, yeah. It's really cool. You missed the first part, but it's a 3-way switch. So
Okay.
you can pair it with
Windows,
3 different devices.
Android, or-
Ignore that. That's very confusing. Like that switch is the iPad. The middle one is my iPhone. The left one I could pair with my Mac or whatever.
Well, that's some classic Microsoft design right there.
Yeah, I mean that part's shitty. Everything else is super rad, and it turns on when you open it up automatically, which I also like. That like they did a really good job with it. The surface feels right.
Okay,
it's
I like
really
that.
good.
What's that called?
The Microsoft Universal Bluetooth Keyboard, I think, is what it's
right.
called. They also just
I like
announced one that doesn't have the top cover and folds in half the long way. Haven't tested that. They're going to send it as soon as they have review models. I also took a Patagonia Nano Puff jacket to Boston with me. This is it looks like a big puffy Costanza jacket, except for it's not really that big. It's super light, and it was like 0 degrees when we were in
Is
Boston.
it like one of those Uniglow kind of jackets?
It's not big like that. This looks like it should be like a fall jacket, but it's as warm as a winter jacket.
Okay.
It was $200 and it is fucking amazing. If you put a windproof shell on top of it and wore a sweater underneath it, you could wear it, I think, probably almost anywhere that you don't need like special shoes to avoid your feet freezing.
That's what Eric wears?
Eric has the North Face version of that same jacket, I think. The North Face one has more fill, and when I talked to the guy at REI, as I do before I buy any type of clothes like this, he said the North Face one is better if you're actually going out and camping and stuff because it's more filled and it is a little bit warmer. The Patagonia one is better for like the type of use that I have, which is like urban wear and stuff like that. And also it rolled up to like the size of a couple of Coke cans in my suitcase, so I didn't have to wear it on the plane, which was nice. Gary, you had an interesting proposition for me the other day.
Did I?
About arcade cabinets.
Oh, yes.
So, do you want to introduce this project?
So our mutual friend, Mike Micah.
Creator of iDarb.
Has he ever been on the podcast?
He has.
Okay, so...
Well, he's not been on the podcast. We've done videos with him.
Okay, so Mike, who created iDarb, which is a big hit on Xbox One right now, coming to PC soon. He's a friend, and he came over on the weekend, and we played some iDarb together. It was good fun. And we started talking about, as we often do, our mutual love of the last Starfighter.
He is great.
And how I wish there was, as a kid, I always wanted that cabinet.
I just wanted to play the game.
I wanted the machine. I wish that game were real. And back in the 80s when they made that movie, I actually scoured the arcades looking for it.
It wasn't a real thing.
But it wasn't a real thing.
No.
But one of the great things about being an adult is that you can realize you can just spend money and exercise the fact that you don't have parents anymore telling you what to do.
Well, you do have parents, but they're not telling you what to do.
You can realize your childhood dreams to some extent. And Mike, being the kind of the video game archivist, curator, kind of expert that he is in retro video games and homebrew projects and things like that, builds a lot of his own machines and makes his own games.
Yeah.
Knows of a project of there are people in the world who have built and can build for you if you pay them the money a fully functioning Starfighter stand-up arcade cabinet with the playable simulation of the game and everything. So he and I are looking into getting it done, and hopefully at some point in the future we will actually have built our own Starfighter cabinets that I would put in my office at home, and it would be, again, so I did it. I could reach back in time to my 10-year-old self and say,
"Hey, self,
we did it," and like high five my 10-year-old self through time. So that's the plan, is to try and actually get this done. And maybe if we do it, maybe it's something you can document on the
So, are you going to
website.
pay for people to do this, or are we going to do it ourselves?
Well, I think it might be a combination of the two. I think what Mike said was you can order a kit and build it yourself, which might be more up your street.
That's what I want to do.
Or you can pay more and have it and buy it fully assembled.
That seems more like your speed.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I might buy it fully assembled, but you may want to do that. You may want to buy the kit.
Hopefully, we can do more than just that game.
Well, it has unique controls.
Yeah.
So it has
It has a joystick on it. It basically has a hot ass.
I think it's the other way though. Isn't the throttle on this side because that's what controls the guns or something?
I can't remember exactly, but there's a joystick and a. I don't think it actually is a throttle, but there's something.
Looks like a throttle. It's like a T control thing.
Yeah. And it has,
By design, it has to match the actual spaceship's controls.
Yes.
Of course.
and you can
training,
you can actually
tool.
download it and play it on PC right now. There is a freeware fan-made version of the game, which I believe is
Called Starfighter.
Yeah, called Starfighter, which is what the arcade cabinet runs. And it actually includes some things that the video game didn't include, like it has Death Blossom.
Oh,
built
God.
in.
So they played. Speaking of games with crazy controls,
Yeah.
the same people that make the Starfighter cabinets make Steel Battalion cabinets. I played Steel Battalion with the old ass, original Xbox
that crazy controller thing?
200 and some buttons at PAX East.
Yeah.
It's in the video. It was the fucking coolest thing ever.
I got set up recently so I could play Elite Dangerous. I got the X52 throttle and
And
joystick.
then you bitched about it being right-handed.
Well, and I'm getting used to that. The problem with it is it's actually, Elite right now in its current form, because they haven't built in yet like a really helpful, dummies guide tutorial mode, which is what I need.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time just crashing inside the docking bay and not quite figuring out what to do. So Norm's going to come over and who's been playing it a lot, teach me how to play it. Which, as I said to him earlier today, is kind of embarrassing since I was literally playing the original Elite before Norm was even fucking born. He now has to come over to my house and teach me how to play the new version.
You should just get on Skype and stream this. This seems like it's good content.
Maybe, we'll see.
Shoot that guy.
I have the stick and I have the... But the joystick alone, just for the little thing where you flip up the missile button, there's the little safety lever.
I feel like a sense of like, oh shit. Shit's getting real before I do that. I practice safety every time.
Yeah.
So when I was playing Steel Battalion, I got shot. We were playing the multiplayer version on LAN, and there was a moment when I had to flip up the cover and hit the eject button because I was about to explode.
Yeah.
I've never felt a sense of stress. Like I was fumbling with the switch to get it up.
I never did. I always wanted that stupid
my God,
controller,
it's so
but
good.
I never did get it.
But you can get them for $150 on eBay, but you have to have a working Xbox original.
Yeah, don't have that.
I think on that note, unless Norm, you have anything you've been testing you want to talk about, or Jeremy,
Nothing new.
or we just both want to get out of here before we hit the 4 hour mark.
This is a long one. Well, it was a big week.
3 hours and 13 minutes so far. This week, the outro is brought to us by B77W. Thank you, Jeremy Williams. You're at Jareware. People can find you at ledsec.com.
True.
Gary Witta. If people want to complain about Gary, the Twitter handle is at Gary Witta.
Yes, and you should go to my and you should go watch my new web show, Nerdcore. It's at youtube.com/skybound.
And the book is available.
And the book is going to be out in June.
Are pre-orders closed for that now, or can people
Pre-order. I
keep
mean,
crowdfunding?
No, you can still go to Inkshares and order a copy. In fact, we just added a paperback version.
Really?
Yeah, it used to be either $8 for the ebook or $25 for the hardcover, and now I think it's $16 for like a paperback in the middle.
That seems good.
Yeah.
Nerd Court, the Jonathan Frakes episode has been getting rave reviews.
Yeah, so we did. It's only our second episode, so we created this show called Nerd Court, which is kind of like the People's Court, but for geeks to come in and kind of argue their geeky issues and have them settled in a mock legal forum presided over by a judge.
Is this like the People's Court where people come in, like they recruit people out of small claims court and bring them into the Nerd Court, or is this just people who have made up grievances?
Well, the grievances are certainly real.
Okay.
And as the show goes on, we hope to kind of open it up to like kind of more and more
User
people to come in.
submissions?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we did Batman versus Superman on the first one. This week we put William T. Riker on trial, and it was a special episode because we had a very impressive expert witness come in and argue Riker's case.
Were you talking about the beards?
Frakes himself
I know.
came in and did so, and we actually got him. It's worth watching, if only for the very end. We got him to on the stand recreate the cliffhanger of Best of Both Worlds when Riker fires on the Borg ship.
Best of both-
I was in the
Star Trek.
courtroom when he did that. I say courtroom is a fucking set, but I was in the
It
courtroom.
looks like a courtroom.
It looks
Kind
very
of.
much. It very much looks like a real courtroom. I was in the courtroom when he did that, and I got a chill when he did it because he actually nailed it. Like I said to him,
that was Riker's moment to shine.
We had the clip because we all studied it because we recreated the camera move and the music and everything. Because there's a camera movement that happens on a jib, and we had studied it because we wanted to recreate it. But I said to Frakes, do you want to look at this just so that you can get the performance dead on? He's like, I don't need to look at it. And he goes, I know. Trust me, I know. And he did it, and it's absolutely spot on, like a perfect recreation.
It was his moment to be captain. Wasn't that when he'd just been promoted?
Well, see, if you remember the scene, what happened was, so Picard goes over to the Borg ship, gets assimilated by the Borg.
I'm Locutus.
And he appears on it is at the end of the third season, appears and says, I am now Locutus of Borg.
Yeah.
And basically Picard, like, you don't come back from being Borged. Picard's gone. He's now in charge of the Borg fleet.
Was there a contract dispute at the same time with Patrick Stewart or anything good to make it really edgy?
No. I think it was all good. And of course, Riker, who's now in charge on the bridge, gives the order to fire on the Borg ship.
They had just upgraded the phasers, the deflector array,
right?
Because it was a special blast that they were going to fire.
Right.
It was a plan that they came up with Picard. It was a good cliffhanger.
Riker in the ultimate moment of like just being the good officer and doing the right thing, free of any emotion, and just like put it all aside, do the shit that you've got to do, destroy that ship, even though Picard is aboard.
Kill my boy Picard.
Doing what he's got to do.
How you earn that third pick.
And like I said, we had him recreate it, and it was absolutely just a stunning moment to watch him bring that moment back to life.
Great moment.
I want to watch
internet
that
TV,
show.
Gary.
Just get actors from great sci-fi shows to recreate their favorite moments.
Well, who knows?
Iconic moments. That's the show I wanna
We shot
watch.
6 episodes, and if they're successful, we'll get to do more. But yes, youtube.com/Skybound is where you can go watch Nerdcore.
There we go. Today's outro comes from B77W. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Go to Tested and see some good stuff all the time. Bye. Hi there. I didn't see you. Tested.
Yes, so that's what I like about My Little Pony Rainbow Magic.
Did you catch shit about being a brony, Gary?
No, from who? Who would I catch
Just
shit
people.
from?
I mean, I assume that people out there are anti-brony.
I think, I've had a couple of people kind of make jokes about it, but, they understand I've got, a 2.5-year-old daughter. She's the one who loves it. I mean, it is true that just through the process of assimilation, like, I haven't got sucked into it.
You don't want to know.
There are
what
certain
happens?
other kids shows that you can't help but get like kind of sucked into. I have been immune to My Little Pony, although I mean I can identify. If you showed me a pony, I could tell you who that pony was.
Oh, I have no doubt.
So I have knowledge of ponies.
Yes.
But I'm not like into it.
If you're at Comic-Con next year and the panel immediately after yours is a My Little Pony panel, will you stay in the theater?
No, I would leave.
Okay.
Because again, I don't care. I just have knowledge.
Sure, you don't
After that last podcast, I planned to bring you a Pinkie Pie, a little stuffed one.
care. It's his favorite pony.
It was your favorite.
No, Rarity is my favorite.
It's not what you said.
You said Pinkie Pie.
Did I? No, I'm pretty sure I said Rarity.
No.
It was either that or Fluttershy.
No, I don't care about Fluttershy.
Okay.
The two main ones are Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle. Like those are the two that if you see I just bought my daughter some My Little Pony pajamas, and those are the two characters because they're like
Who's she into?
she likes Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle.
Okay.
Same with mine.
We're not into
Norm is trying to
we're not into My Little
slowly
Pony at
trying to
my
get
house.
out of here.
We'll see you guys next week. Bye.